Chapter 2300. Geocentric Kindling. Of course I can't let him go. The geocentric divine flame liquid is the key to improving my bloodline. How can I let this nameless person take it away? Du Chang's eyes were red. He had entered the core world to improve his bloodline. In the end, he had been tricked by Yi Fei. With Du Chang's pride, how could he tolerate this? Li Chong was still a little clever. At this moment, he said worriedly, "But the core world is so big. How we know where Yi Fei went? Also, what if he uses this time to refine the treasure?" Boom! It would have been better if he hadn't mentioned this. Hearing this, Du Chang's eyes were not only red, but his entire body was burning with anger. He can't escape. The spiritual tree cannot be placed in the spatial belt. As long as we follow the spiritual tree's aura, we will definitely find them. Third brother, it's up to you. Du Chang looked at the oldest of his subordinates, the Lord of Heaven. His team was not ranked by age, but by strength. Du Chang was the strongest, so he was the boss. Big brother, don't worry. Although Yi Fei is nimble, he is still not meticulous enough. The old Lord of Heaven walked out and suddenly squatted down to pick up a half-eaten fruit core. This was the fruit that the dragon turtle spat out after eating half of it. The dragon turtle probably didn't even care about it. However, this elderly heavenly monarch was undoubtedly an expert in tracking. With the fruit core in hand, he rushed out of the valley. At this moment, Yi Fei didn't know that Du Chang might have already locked onto his whereabouts. He was still immersed in comprehending the law of the blood sword. The effects of the geocentric divine flame liquid were indeed very strong. With the appearance of the third set of 3 laws, Yi Fei's cultivation level began to rapidly and steadily advance towards the late Lord of Heaven's realm. During this period, the huge dragon turtle and Yi Fei, who was carrying the spiritual tree, attracted the attention of many strange vicious beasts in the core world. After all, vicious beasts had the instinct to protect their spiritual items. Such a precious bloodline, spiritual tree attracted the attention of many vicious beasts of the Lord of Heaven. To this, the dragon turtle responded domineeringly. It released poison along the way. Along the way, the wind blew all the way, causing the air to turn green and the ground to turn green. When it saw ferocious beasts that it couldn't afford to provoke, the dragon turtle even used the tiger's might to intimidate it. It spat out a large poison dragon pearl to scare its opponents. However, the dragon turtle's attention was only focused on the Lord of Heaven ferocious beasts. He didn't pay much attention to the other ferocious beasts, so he didn't notice that a sovereign ferocious beast with the head of an eagle and the body of an ox was following them from afar. Of course, Little Grass had noticed this vicious beast. Unfortunately, because this vicious beast's level was too low, it didn't show any hostility. Little Grass didn't take it seriously. She followed Yi Fei's instructions and focused most of her energy on sensing the geocentric fire seed. Just like that, another 10 days passed. Yi Fei's body. He finally broke through to the late Lord of Heaven. Bai Yanran also broke through. They looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. He broke through so quickly. The geocentric divine fire elixir is indeed magical. It's a pity there's a limited amount. I can waste 1 drop, but I have to keep the rest. Yi Fei looked at the remaining 2 drops of geocentric divine fire elixir in his hand. He couldn't bear to refine them. Instead, he decided to take them back. He would give 1 drop to Yi Shanshan and the other to Lu Qing so that they could improve their bloodlines. As for Yi Xiaochan, she didn't have a bloodline. However, she had a resolute heart that many people didn't have. Therefore, Yi Fei didn't let Yi Xiaochan follow in his footsteps. Instead, he wanted her to follow the sword maniac elder and walk the path of the heart sword. To cultivate the sword was to cultivate the heart. Sometimes a powerful bloodline could increase a warrior's combat power. However, a resolute and indomitable will was the greatest source of strength for a warrior. But if there's a chance, I still have to think of a way to let Xiaochan have a bloodline. After all, my disciple can't fall behind others. Yi Fei thought to himself. Suddenly, he sensed something and looked into the distance. He saw a strange, ferocious beast with the head of an eagle and the body of an ox walking out from the nearby forest. It was quietly following behind them. Perhaps it sensed Yi Fei's gaze, but the vicious beast hesitated for a moment. In the end, they stopped and returned to the forest. Bai Yanran also looked at the vicious beasts curiously. It's actually an ox-eagle. This is the descendant of a divine eagle and a demon ox. It's extinct in the heavenly realm. I didn't expect to see it in the geocentric realm. Bai Yanran was very excited. Yi Fei was also a little surprised. It's a pity that the vicious beasts are too vigilant. However, if we capture them, we should be able to sell them for a good price. Bai Yanran looked at the spirit tree that Yi Fei was still carrying on his shoulder. She felt as if she had learned something again. Of course, if she were to be like Yi Fei and dig up the spirit tree and take it away, no matter how thick-skinned she was, she would definitely not be able to do it. Roar! The dragon turtle suddenly roared in alarm. At this moment, the dragon turtle had already entered the deepest part of the geocentric realm. The land here was barren, and not a single blade of grass grew. White smoke and flames rose from the ground from time to time, as if it was burnt. This is the place. This is the most famous valley of fire in the geocentric realm. I heard from my brother that the geocentric fire seed of our Lord Pan Palace was discovered here. Bai Yanran suddenly became excited. Yi Fei also became spirited. He hurriedly said to Xiao Qiao, use all your strength to sense the geocentric fire seed. When we return, you will be rewarded with 100,000 sticks of candied haws. Squeak. It would have been better if Yi Fei had not said this. After hearing this, Xiao Qiao's eyes widened. The heavenly eye of heaven and earth on his forehead released a mysterious light as he looked in all directions. Suddenly, Xiao Qiao discovered something and pointed in a direction. Go over there. Big Black, protect the spirit tree. After all, the temperature here was too high and was not very good for the spirit tree. However, due to Bai Yanran's presence, he could not put the spirit tree into the beast mark space. Therefore, he could only let the dragon turtle watch over it. At the same time, Yi Fei suddenly sped up and rushed in the direction Xiao Qiao had pointed. However, there was no geocentric fire seed in Xiao Qiao's direction. Even the temperature was lower than usual. Bai Yanran could not help but feel puzzled. Yi Fei, could you be mistaken? There are no flames here. It doesn't seem like there's a geocentric fire seed. That's not necessarily true. Yi Fei shook his head. Since Xiao Qiao said there was a geocentric fire seed here, then there must be one. Even if it was not on the surface, there must be one underground. Big Black, dig. Roar. The dragon turtle placed the spirit tree on its back. Its two dragon claws suddenly shone with blade light as it continuously dug into the ground. However, it had only dug halfway when its claws became boiling hot. At the same time, a terrifying pillar of flame shot out from the ground. Like a volcanic eruption, it shot the dragon turtle from the ground directly into the sky. The dragon turtle was so frightened that its black mouth turned white. It quickly activated its special ability, the Xuanwu dragon shell. A layer of turtle shell that shone like crystal covered its entire body. Only then did it withstand the impact of the flames. Xiao Qiao's eyes were already sparkling. Chapter 23:01. Demonic Dwellers Attack, 10 times stronger than the Earth Core Fiery Eye. This means that the power of the fire seed here is 10 times stronger than the one in Lord Pan's palace. I wonder if this fiery eye can break the bloodline seal in my body. Yi Fei stared at the fiery eye fervently. Just as he was about to investigate the situation of the fiery eye, Xiao Qiao suddenly squeaked nervously. Enemy. Yi Fei's expression changed. Bai Yanran immediately released her divine perception and scanned the surroundings. However, she didn't find anything. She couldn't help but look at Yi Fei in confusion. Follow me. Yi Fei didn't explain about Xiao Qiao. Although he was friends with Bai Yanran, he didn't want to expose Xiao Qiao's secret. Bai Yanran didn't ask too much. Out of trust, the two of them quickly found a huge rock and hid. They also took out the Azure Sky treasure mirror to conceal their auras. At this moment, Dozens of men, covered in scales and burning with demonic flames, appeared silently in the periphery of the Valley of Flames. They quickly rushed in, and their target was the Earth Core fiery eye that Yi Fei had discovered. "He's not here. Could it be that your intelligence is wrong?" Seeing that there was no one around, the leader of the group, a man wearing a mask, suddenly questioned angrily. A Tao Lord walked out from the group of men, wearing scales, and replied respectfully and coldly, "Since your father asked us to do this, we definitely wouldn't be wrong. The person you want to deal with must be here. If you can't find him now, there's only one possibility. They're hiding." The masked man's tone was cold. "I don't care what method you use. You must find Yi Fei for me. Today, I'll use this Earth Core fiery eye as his burial ground." "Ha, young master, don't worry. In the Earth Core world, no one can escape the detection of the demonic dwellers. Ox Eagle, find where they're hiding." "Demonic dwellers?" Yi Fei was very surprised. Bai Yanran beside him explained with a pale face, "Demonic dwellers are a very special race. It's said that they are half human, half demon monsters created by the demon province. As they aren't humans, many demonic dwellers who escaped to the divine prefecture couldn't survive outside and enter the Earth Core world. Over time, demonic dwellers became the most dangerous existence in the Earth Core world. After all, humans who entered the Earth Core world were restricted by the rules. Only the Lord of Heaven could enter the Earth Core world. As demonic dwellers were no longer humans, they weren't restricted by the rules. Dwellers were no longer humans, and demonic dwellers. However, there was one thing that Yi Fei was very puzzled about. He didn't offend these demonic dwellers. Why were they tracking him? Also, who was the young master they were talking about? Yi Fei wanted to ask Xiao Chao to use the divine eye of heaven and earth to see the identity of the masked young man. However, before he could do anything, a long cry of an eagle suddenly sounded in the sky. It formed an invisible sound wave that covered all directions. Yi Fei was shocked to discover that the ox eagle that had been following them was actually the eyes and ears of these demonic dwellers. At the same time, the ox eagle had a special ability, which was the detection of sound waves. As the ox eagle's voice spread in all directions like water waves, the rock that Yi Fei and Bai Yanran were hiding in was soon attacked by the sound waves. At this moment, the ox eagle's eyes also looked in the direction of the rock. That sharp gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the rock. There was even a hint of mockery in it. "Have we been discovered?" Bai Yanran's beautiful eyes became serious. "I'm afraid so. Although the Qingyun treasure mirror can hide our aura, it can't hide our bodies. What the ox eagle released was not divine sense, but sound waves." Yi Fei nodded helplessly. He was the first to walk out from behind the rock. At this moment, with the ox eagle's reminder, the masked man had already led a group of demonic dwellers and rushed over angrily. When he saw Yi Fei, the masked man's eyes turned red. "Yimo, you didn't think that this day would come, did you? Who are you? Do we have a grudge?" Yi Fei looked at the masked man in confusion. His figure was vaguely familiar, but his voice was too sharp. He was obviously a man, but he spoke with a sharp voice. It was really chilling. Yi Fei really couldn't recognize the identity of the person in front of him. He could only look at Bai Yanran. Bai Yanran shook her head and said, "Don't look at me. I feel that this person is familiar, but his voice is very unfamiliar." "Ha ha ha, Bai Yanran. It doesn't matter if you're unfamiliar with me. It's fine as long as I'm familiar with your body." The masked man stared at Bai Yanran with a burning gaze. He even let out a shrill voice that sounded like a woman's. Yi Fei and Bai Yanran both shuddered when they heard it. The other demonic dwellers also took this opportunity to surround them from all directions. This made Yi Fei and Bai Yanran's expressions turn serious. "It seems like a battle is unavoidable. Leave that Tao Lord to me. The other demonic dwellers, the Lord of Heaven, will be left to you? Is there a problem?" Yi Fei said in a low voice. Bai Yanran glared at him. "Don't forget, I'm the Fire Fox. I'll leave the Tao Lord to you. Leave that androgynous one to me. But what about the other sovereigns?" This time, not only had the Tao Lord and the Lord of Heaven come, there were also many sovereigns. Yi Fei didn't even think. He looked at the dragon turtle, then pointed at the demonic dwellers and said, "Leave these small fries to the dragon turtle. As for that bull eagle, Big Black, if you can't beat it, then don't eat magnetite anymore. Eat dirt every day. Roar. The dragon turtle's face turned ashen when he heard Yi Fei's threat. However, for the sake of future food, the dragon turtle immediately unleashed a powerful fighting spirit. It roared angrily and charged at the bull eagle. This enraged the bull eagle. It let out a shrill cry and charged at the dragon turtle. But soon, the eagle paid a painful price for its carelessness. The dragon turtle's shell was too thick after activating the black tortoise dragon shell. Not only was the eagle's sharp claws unable to scratch the dragon turtle, but the dragon turtle took the opportunity to take out two black ladles from nowhere and slap the eagle's face consecutively with both ladles. The bull eagle screamed. Eagle wings suddenly appeared on its body. It wanted to soar into the sky and put some distance between it and the dragon turtle. The dragon turtle let out a domineering roar. It opened its mouth and spat out dragon flames. At the same time, a pair of special dragon wings appeared on its body. It rushed to the top of the bull eagle's head and suddenly enlarged. At the same time, the dragon turtle raised its head and sat down. Boom! The earth shook. The bull eagle screamed for help as it was sat on by the dragon turtle. Seeing how arrogant the dragon turtle was, the nearby demonic dwellers were all enraged. They roared angrily and turned into black shadows as they charged at the dragon turtle. Thousand Peaks turn, Pan King stands on earth. Bai Yinran's body spun. Her long skirt turned into a flame-like battle robe. Her palms were like mountains. They suddenly enveloped the masked man and the other Lord of Heaven. Kill! Chapter 23:02. The Might of the Killing Sword. Humph, you overestimate yourself. A mere Lord of Heaven dares to fight a Tao Lord. I really don't know if you're arrogant or ignorant. The demonic Tao Lord snorted coldly. The scales on his body emitted a strange demonic light. This was a defense unique to demonic humans. Once activated, it was like an impenetrable wall. At that moment, the demonic man used his defensive advantage to suddenly throw out a demonic punch. That punch was too terrifying. The demonic light that filled the air was like a black sun that appeared in the void, burning the void. The scorching light caused the world to shake violently. This was the might of a Tao Lord. Every move he made was enough to affect the world. However, just as the Tao Lord was feeling pleased with himself, the black sun that filled the sky was shattered by a sword light. Yi Fei's body emitted an intense sword light. The dark steel heavy sword transformed into a heavy dark steel heavy mountain that smashed forward. A huge sword scar appeared in the world, let alone the black sun formed by the demonic aura. Such a terrifying sword strike immediately made the demonic Tao Lord's expression change. For the first time, his disdainful expression turned serious. He nodded slightly and said, "You are not bad. It's no wonder that young master is so wary of you. Unfortunately, the absolute difference in cultivation level is not something your martial techniques can make up for." Boom! The demonic Tao Lord punched again. The scales on his arms suddenly fused and shone with a metallic luster. The demonic man's body of flesh and blood had suddenly turned into a body of iron. He had formed a special soldier. His fists had also transformed into war hammers. Dong dong. The two fists smashed out like dancing war hammers, punching holes in the void. When these fists collided with the dark steel heavy sword, Yi Fei suddenly felt a huge force that could topple mountains and overturn seas instantly engulfed him. In just two punches, the void that Yi Fei was standing in was completely destroyed by the demonic Tao Lord. Even so, the demonic Tao Lord had no intention of letting Yi Fei go. As he retracted his fists, his legs transformed into two terrifying steel blades that tore through space and came at Yi Fei. "Yi Fei, be careful. That is the demonic man's specialty, the double dragon slash." Bai Yinran warned anxiously. After all, his opponent was a demonic Tao Lord, while Yi Fei was just a Lord of Heaven. "Haha, Bai Yinran, you'd better worry about yourself. I didn't expect you to be the fire fox of the gladiator arena." When I catch you, I'll have a good time with you. The demonic man's demonic man's demonic man. Lord Demonic Tao, Lord's Heaven's Demonic Man, by Yin Ran, was immediately caught in a tough battle. He could no longer divert his attention to Yi Fei's situation. At the same time, the demonic Tao Lord's legs transformed into two divine blades that came slashing at Yi Fei's body. At the same time, a sword light that shot into the nine heavens erupted from Yi Fei's hands. That was the light of the Sword of Slaughter, as well as the light of death. When this sword light appeared, the entire world seemed to be torn in half. In the middle of the world was a dazzling sword. The sword light of death shattered the void and severed the world. Impossible. You don't have a bloodline. How can you use a natural mystique? The demonic Tao Lord's eyes were very sharp. He could tell that Yi Fei wasn't using an ordinary martial technique, but a natural mystique. He was instantly frightened. He kicked out with both legs continuously. Every time he kicked out, a terrifying blade light would appear between the heavens and the earth. However, when these blade lights gathered together, they formed the demonic Tao Lord's double dragon stomp. One step, one stomp. 10 stomps, one kill. At the same time, the demonic Tao Lord's double dragon stomp was clearly a full 20 steps. He was confident that such an attack could instantly kill a Tao Lord of the same level. Unfortunately, the demonic Tao Lord's opponent wasn't a martialist of the same level as him. It was Yi Fei. What he was facing wasn't an ordinary sword Tao mystique. It was the Sword of Slaughter, the Sword of Death. Moreover, Yi Fei wasn't idle while the demonic Tao Lord was continuously using the double dragon stomp. He roared. As he used the Sword of Slaughter, a strong blood-red light suddenly appeared on Yi Fei's body. That was his mystique will, the bloody battle will. Boom! When the Sword of Slaughter fused with the bloody battle will, Yi Fei's sword light suddenly became as bright as a star. In an instant, it shattered the blade light condensed by the demonic Tao Lord's double dragon stomp. However, Yi Fei's sword still didn't stop. After the Sword of Slaughter, another faster and fiercer sword light erupted from his body. The dark iron heavy sword even let out a roar at this moment. It was as if a sleeping dragon was roaring furiously. The demonic Tao Lord's face was immediately filled with shock and a trace of inexplicable fear. Natural mystique. You actually comprehended the mystique will. Damn it, you're actually an expert of the earth carnage roll. Kill, demonic traverse thousands of miles. Realizing that he couldn't win in a head-on fight, the demonic Tao Lord quickly changed his strategy. Demonic flames burned on his body and formed a pair of black fire wings. He suddenly disappeared in front of Yi Fei and appeared on the side of Yi Fei. His fists were like demonic mountains as they suddenly smashed out, filling the void with astonishing cracks. You want to compete in speed with me? Yi Fei had a strange look on his face. Suddenly, countless afterimages appeared on his body. As he dodged the demonic Tao Lord's fists, a pair of flaming green dragon wings appeared on Yi Fei's back, and he suddenly disappeared in front of the demonic Tao Lord. Not good. Get out of my way. Come and help me. The demonic Tao Lord was so frightened that cold sweat broke out on his forehead. However, he reacted very quickly. Almost at the same time that Yi Fei disappeared, the countless scales on the demonic Tao Lord's body suddenly erupted with blade light, forming a terrifying scale storm that slashed in all directions. Kill! Yi Fei's expression was cold as he suddenly appeared on the demonic Tao Lord's body. The slaughter sword carried a torch-like glow as it slashed forward. The intense sword light turned the entire area into a sea of blood. In that sea of blood, all the scales on the demonic Tao Lord's body were instantly shattered by the sword light. The dark steel heavy sword smashed heavily on the demonic Tao Lord's body. With a loud explosion, a huge hole was smashed open in the demonic Tao Lord's chest. His organs and bones were all blasted into a bloody mist. Even so, the demonic Tao Lord didn't die. Instead, he let out a painful and ferocious roar and quickly fled into the distance. He didn't dare to fight Yi Fei alone. This scene also shocked the Lord of Heaven, who was besieging by Yin Ran. The masked man let out a shrill cry of disbelief. This is impossible. You country bumpkin, you don't even have a bloodline. How can you defeat a Tao Lord? I don't believe it. Continue attacking and kill him. I will reward you handsomely. Country bumpkin? You're Wang Xiao? Chapter 2303. Dangerous Du Chong. Wang Xiao, it's actually you, you pervert. Bai Yanran was completely enraged. One had to know that during the battle, just now, the masked man had taken liberties with her more than once. He even said that he wanted to play with her body. However, Bai Yanran didn't do anything because she didn't know the other party's identity. It was only when Yi Fei pointed out Wang Xiao's identity and attracted the attention of the Demon Tao Lord and a large number of Demon Lord of Heaven that Bai Yanran unleashed the terrifying power of the Fire Fox. Bang! She struck out with a fist that stirred up the wind like a tiger, as if a goddess was shaking the void. Layers upon layers of mountains broke through heaven and earth, as magnificent as mountains and rivers. This was Hua Hu's true strength. His fists were like mountains, 1,000 peaks return. In the face of such punches and kicks, Wang Xiao, who was already injured, was no match for Bai Yanran at all. Even though there were two Lord of Heaven by his side, and they besieged Bai Yanran together, they were still defeated. Moreover, Bai Yanran was angry at Wang Xiao's insults. Almost every time he punched, Wang Xiao was the main target. Soon, Wang Xiao couldn't take it anymore. He took a punch to his chest and a kick to his lower body. The kick to his lower body had undoubtedly pricked Wang Xiao's most sensitive nerves. Wang Xiao immediately roared hysterically. Bai Yanran, you forced me to do this. Even if I can't toy with you, I can still toy with your corpse. Kill them. Kill these two bastards for me. Obviously, from Wang Xiao's point of view, the reason why the demon dwellers were retreating was because of his order to capture Yi Fei and Bai Yanran alive. For the sake of revenge, in his madness, Wang Xiao did not care about capturing them alive. He simply ordered the demon dwellers to kill Yi Fei and Bai Yanran. However, Wang Xiao had obviously overestimated the combat power of the demon dwellers and underestimated Bai Yanran's strength. After all, she was a female hero who had won 74 consecutive battles in the arena of life and death. Unlike Wang Xiao, who only knew how to rely on his family background. Even though he gave the order to kill, Wang Xiao soon discovered that he and the two Demon Lord of Heaven could only force Bai Yanran to defend herself more than she was unable to attack. Of the Demon Tao Lord of Heaven, they couldn't really hurt Bai. At the same time, the demonic Tao Lord on the other side was once again smashed to the ground by Yi Fei's sword. He spat out a large mouthful of demonic blood on the spot, but before he could catch his breath, suddenly, the sky turned into a sea of blood again. In this sea of blood, sword light flashed and killed all living things. A heavenly monarch of the demon race fell into the sea of blood. He felt intense pain in his body and screamed. His head was chopped off by Yi Fei's sword. The headless corpse fell from the sky and into the fire eye. It was instantly burned to ashes. What the hell is going on here? You're a Tao Lord and 5 heavenly lords working together, but you can't even deal with this country bumpkin? What's the point of our Wang clan keeping you around? Wang Xiao was furious and aggrieved. He had already invited the demon dwellers out, but he still couldn't avenge his broken eggs. Wang Xiao was furious. Of course, Wang Xiao wasn't the one who was angrier. The demon dwellers of life was. When he heard Wang Xiao's words, he scolded, "Shut up. We accepted the benefits of your family dwellers, but we didn't say that we would work for your family dwellers till the end." After witnessing Yi Fei's power and realizing how difficult Bai Yanran was to deal with, the demon dwellers of life wanted to retreat. However, it was easy for the Lord of Heaven, whom he had brought with him, to retreat. The demon dwellers of life was sitting on the ground, unable to move. This made the demon dwellers of life hesitate. Just as he was hesitating, a group of uninvited guests rushed in from outside the Valley of Flames. The leader was an elderly Lord of Heaven. As he rushed in, he shouted, "Big brother, my tracking technique tells me that Yi Fei is right in front." "Very good. I've finally caught you, the rat." "Yi Fei, Let's see where you can run to this time. Boom! A powerful young man, standing on a cloud of fire, appeared in the sky. Beside him were Li Chong and the other 3 Lord of Heaven experts. One of the Lord of Heaven was still holding half a bloodline fruit in his hand. He had followed the aura left behind on the fruit and followed it all the way here. Yi Fei immediately glared at the dragon turtle. The dragon turtle also felt guilty and hurriedly shifted its body. In a moment of carelessness, it actually pressed down on the bull eagle, causing it to vomit blood and faint. My bull eagle, that black pig, if you don't release my bull eagle, I won't let you off. The demon Tao Lord was heartbroken. Li Chong and the other 3 Lord of Heaven also widened their eyes. They had all recognized the dragon turtle. It was the one they had encountered along the way when they were chasing after Yi Fei. At first, they had thought that the black turtle was just stupid enough to pass by. Who would have known that the black turtle was actually in cahoots with Yi Fei? The 4 Lord of Heaven were so angry that their hair stood on end. If we don't kill such a vicious turtle, we won't be able to vent our anger. Kill it and cook it into soup. Boom! As they spoke, Li Chong and the other 3 Lord of Heaven attacked the dragon turtle at the same time. The dragon turtle was so frightened that its mouth turned white. Without another word, it hurriedly exerted its strength and sat down. At the same time, the bull eagle woke up from its unconscious state. At the same time, the dragon turtle's body shot up into the sky like a rubber ball. Roar! The 4 Lord of Heaven's attacks didn't hit the dragon turtle. Instead, they blasted the bull eagle below into a bloody mess and killed it. My bull eagle! The demon Tao Lord was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of demonic blood. His eyes turned red. He wanted to abandon Yi Fei and fight it out with the 4 human Lord of Heaven. However, Wang Xiu recognized Du Chong at a glance. He quickly stopped the demons and said, "Don't be rash. My family Wang will compensate double for the loss of the bull eagle. This is young master Du Chong from the palace of the Divine King. Our entire family Wang isn't as thick as young master Du's finger." While calming the demons, Wang Xiu quickly greeted Du Chong. "Young master Du, I am family Wang Xiu. Coincidentally, I have a blood feud with this demon Lord Yi. If young master Du allows it, I am willing to lead all the demons to deal with Yi Fei with you." "You are Wang Xiu? Why is your voice so sharp like a eunuch's?" Du Chong obviously knew Wang Xiu. However, he found Wang Xiu's sharp voice very strange. This had obviously touched Wang Xiu's reverse scale. However, the other party was Du Chong. Wang Xiu could only endure the humiliation and said, "Young Master Du, let's talk about this later. The most important thing now is to kill this demon Lord Yi. Don't let him escape." While speaking, Wang Xiu had already led the remaining demons to stand behind Du Chong. This also made the retreating by Yanran's expression turn serious. They were all from the city of the Divine King. Naturally, she had also heard of Du Chong's title as the strongest person in the Lord of Heaven. At this moment, she couldn't help but look at Yi Fei gloomily. "What should we do? I didn't expect that the one guarding the valley would be Du Chong. We're in big trouble now." Du Chong from the palace of the Divine King. Yi Fei was a little gloomy. He wondered if he was at odds with the Divine King's palace. Originally, he was very willing to build a good relationship with the Divine King's palace because Zhao Yu was cultivating in the Divine King's palace. However, the reality was that he had clashed with the Divine King's palace time and time again. Of course, this couldn't be blamed on him. After all, it was Li Chong and the others who schemed against him first. He was only retaliating in passing. When they saw the spiritual tree on Yi Fei's shoulder again, Li Chong and the others were so angry that their eyes shone with a fierce green light. After all, this spiritual tree should have belonged to them if nothing unexpected happened. However, Yi Fei had almost dug up all the roots. Chapter 2304. Tit for Tat. Around the flames were a Tao Lord, a dozen Lord of Heaven, Du Chong, the most powerful Lord of Heaven of the Deity King Palace, and a large number of Dominator demons. They surrounded Yi Fei so tightly that he couldn't escape even if he had wings. Du Chong calmed down, and a cold expression appeared on his face. He said arrogantly, Wang Xiao, you can help, but you won't get a share of the treasures on him. Don't worry, Master I don't want any treasures. I only want Yifei's life and the beauty by Yinran. Wang Xiao laughed sinisterly. The best way to get rid of the title of Broken Egg King was to toy with a great beauty like Bai Yinran. Even though his egg was broken, Wang Xiao still looked at Bai Yinran with a burning gaze. This made Bai Yinran's beautiful eyes narrow. She clenched her fists and said, Even if I die today, I will kill you first. It's just a dog's bark. Why do you care, Yinran? Yifei pulled Bai Yinran back in time to prevent her from being too impulsive. After all, they were not only facing a Dao Lord, but also a speed expert like Du Chong. If she wasn't careful, Bai Yinran could be captured. Looks like I have to think of a way to ensure Bai Yinran's safety first. Yifei thought to himself. He had fought with Du Chong before and knew how powerful he was. Moreover, Du Chong had joined forces with the demons led by Wang Xiao. Bai Yinran was strong, but in a battle like this, she was at an absolute disadvantage. Yifei made up his mind. He suddenly looked at Bai Yinran seriously and said, Bai Yinran, if you trust me, give me your Earth Core Divine Flame Liquid. Yifei purposely spoke very loudly. Originally, Wang Xiao had already led the demons in preparing to launch a second attack. Du Chong's expression changed slightly. He hurriedly waved his hand to stop Wang Xiao and the demons from acting rashly. Bai Yinran rolled her eyes and said, You were the one who found the Earth Core Divine Flame Liquid. If I don't trust you, who else can I trust? Here. She happily handed over the rest of the Earth Core Divine Flame Liquid. Yifei took the Earth Core Divine Flame Liquid and took his own bottle of Earth Core Divine Flame Liquid. Yifei took the Earth Core Divine Flame Liquid and took his own bottle of the Earth Core Divine Flame Liquid. And Rats took. Do SSSS took. S of 4 TNs. Rats took. Do is filled with disdain. Ignoring the fact that Yifei had stolen his divine flame elixir, just based on the fact that Yifei had surpassed him in speed, he definitely wouldn't let Yifei live. Blacky, 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 black. Dragon, dragon, dragon. Dragon, 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 dragon. Dragon, 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 dragon. Dragon, dragon, he dragon of the roar. The powerful effects of the divine fire liquid caused the dragon turtle's entire body to burn with bloody flames that soared into the sky. There was no need to deliberately activate it. The energy had already begun to automatically purify the impurities in the dragon turtle's bloodline. It also caused the dragon turtle's demonic dragon blood to continuously transform in the direction of becoming stronger. Yifei, you're courting death. This scene stung Du Chong's nerves. After all, his greatest goal in entering the core world was to find the Earth Core Divine Flame Liquid and improve his bloodline. But now, such a treasure had been ruined by a black turtle. Du's gloomy face contorted with anger. Li Chong and Wang Xiao's killing intent soared. However, it was not directed at Yifei, but at the dragon turtle. After all, that was the Earth Core Divine Flame Elixir, which could only be found by chance. Now that it was swallowed by the dragon turtle, the Lord of Heaven had the urge to kill the turtle and eat its meat. Let's kill that black tortoise and eat its meat while it hasn't been refined yet. The demon leader suddenly roared. Niu Ying's death had enraged him. Since he could not take revenge on Du Chong's people, he would kill this black turtle and bury it with Niu Ying. Yifei did not say anything. He suddenly raised his head and drained his bottle of divine fire liquid in one gulp. Du Chong, I should be qualified to negotiate with you now, right? He was clearly threatening Du Chong. If Du Chong dared to make a move, he would dare to waste all the divine fire liquid in front of him. After losing 2 drops of divine fire liquid in a row, Du Chong's face was completely distorted. He also did not dare to let Yifei continue to waste the divine fire liquid. He immediately stopped the demon leader and said in a cold voice, All of you stop. Yifei, you win. Tell me, what do you want to negotiate with me? Du Chong's eyes flashed coldly as he stared straight ahead. It's very simple. Make a path for Bai Yanran and let her go. I'm the one who has a grudge against you. It has nothing to do with Bai Yanran, Yi Fei said calmly. Bai Yanran's expression changed drastically. She said firmly, if you don't leave, I won't leave either. What nonsense are you talking about? If you don't leave, both of us will die here. It's better for me to die than both of you. Be good and listen to me. Yi Fei's expression was solemn. Clearly, this was not the time for Bai Yanran to throw a tantrum. Yi Fei pretended to turn his back and rub Bai Yanran's head. However, he was secretly winking at her. Trust me, I can only escape if you are safe. Even if you want me to trust you, why are you rubbing my head? Bai Yanran glared at Yi Fei. She felt that Yi Fei was too domineering, but she could not refute him. After all, with the current situation, she would not be able to help if she stayed. Moreover, Yi Fei's calmness had affected her as well. Bai Yanran felt reassured and said softly, I'll listen to you. What should I do now? It's very simple. You are not a genius in spiritual attachment. Now, you will inscribe the divine patterns and build the teleportation platform. Yi Fei instructed Bai Yanran. Then, he took the porcelain bottle and walked step by step toward Du Chong. Du Chong, you won't refuse my condition, right? Du Chong's expression turned extremely ugly. However, when he saw that Yi Fei was about to crush the last bottle of Earth Core Divine Flame Elixir in his hand, Du Chong nodded with a ferocious expression. Hand over the Earth Core Divine Flame Elixir, and you will live. If it is destroyed, not only you, but also Bai Yanran, you will all die. Young Master Du, you can't do that, Wang Xiu said anxiously. If Du Chong released Yi Fei and Bai Yanran, how could he take revenge? I have made up my mind. If you dare say another word, I will kill you as well. Du Chong was undoubtedly a very strong person. Wang Xiu was furious, but he did not dare to say anything. He could only watch as Bai Yanran quickly used the divine patterns to build the one-way teleportation platform. Yi Fei, I'm leaving, Bai Yanran said reluctantly and worriedly. She was still worried that Yi Fei would be able to survive this crisis. Don't worry. When I return, help me take care of this spiritual tree. Seeing that Yi Fei did not forget to take the spiritual tree with him, even when death was at hand, Bai Yanran did not know whether to laugh or cry. However, Yi Fei's attitude had an inexplicable sense of security. Knowing that she would only be a burden if she stayed, Bai Yanran did not say anything. She immediately activated the divine patterns and started the teleportation. Boom! At this moment, a terrifying and dangerous aura erupted from Du Chong's body. It did not matter if Bai Yanran left, but if Yi Fei left, he would have to kill him immediately. Kill. Chapter 23:05. Entering the fiery eye unexpectedly. When the divine inscriptions flickered and Bai Yanran began to teleport, Yi Fei did not take the opportunity to rush up to the teleportation platform. Instead, he stood guard around the teleportation platform, preventing it from being destroyed. Wang Xiu's expression immediately turned ugly. He had tried to find an opportunity to destroy Bai Yanran's teleportation, but Yi Fei had blocked him from approaching. Yi Fei, I'll wait for you at the Lord Pan Palace. When the teleportation began, Bai Yanran could not help but shed tears of worry. However, she would only be a burden if she stayed. All she could do was leave a trace of her consciousness on Yi Fei's fingertip. Until she saw that Yi Fei was finally safe, this strand of her divine sense would definitely not dissipate. Even though Yi Fei felt that this was unnecessary, he couldn't refuse such good intentions. In the end, he nodded indifferently at Bai Yanran and waved his hand. Then, Bai Yanran's figure turned into a ray of light and disappeared from the Valley of Flames. Yimo, I, Wang Xiu, swear that I will never forgive you. Wang Xiu was so angry that his lungs were about to explode when he saw Bai Yanran successfully escape. A cold light flashed across Du Chong's ferocious face as he stared coldly at Yi Fei. I've already released him. Now, hand over the Earth Core Divine Flame Liquid, and I'll leave immediately. I won't attack you. Wang Xiu was so angry that he clenched his fists so hard that they bled. However, the person in charge here was Du Chong. No matter how angry Wang Xiu was, he had to hold it in. Du Cheng, even a ghost wouldn't believe your words. Yi Fei shook his head coldly. The earth core divine flame liquid was in his hands, and Du Cheng did not dare to attack him. If he handed it over, Du Cheng would have nothing to worry about, and this person would immediately join forces with the demons to tear him to pieces. Moreover, Du Cheng had his reasons for agreeing to let Bai Yanran go. Because when Bai Yanran was inscribing the divine inscriptions, Li Chong and the other three Lord of Heaven had set up spatial restrictions in the surroundings, turning the Valley of Flames into a no-fly zone. No one could fly into the sky, and Yi Fei could no longer take advantage of his speed. In this way, not only would it not be a loss to let Bai Yanran go, but it would also completely isolate Yi Fei. At this moment, Du Cheng led his men and surrounded Yi Fei step by step. If you don't hand it over, only death awaits you. Hand it over, and I'll let you die a quick death. Or should I say, do you want me to kill this black tortoise with my own hands before you're willing to submit? Silently, a cold gaze stared at the dragon tortoise. Beautiful sparks shot out from the dragon tortoise's shell. Only then did the dragon tortoise react. It was actually attacked by the Lord of Heaven. Li Chong and the other three were shocked. What did this black tortoise eat to grow up? It can actually defend against the Lord of Heaven's attack. Big Black, let's go. Yi Fei had no intention of fighting with Du Cheng and the others. Since he would definitely lose if he fought, Yi Fei simply grabbed the dragon turtle and suddenly leaped, rushing towards the nearby Fire Eye. This was Yi Fei's escape plan. Even though Du Cheng and the others had sealed the sky and surrounded him in the Fire Eye, there was one place they definitely didn't dare to step into. That was the Earth's core Fire Eye. This was also the reason why Yi Fei had to send Bai Yanran away in advance. Only when Bai Yanran left could he be at ease and rush into the Fire Eye. When they saw that Yi Fei wasn't breaking through the sky but the Fire Eye, everyone's expression changed. Bai Yanran's consciousness, which was wrapped around Yi Fei's fingertip, screamed anxiously, "Yi Fei, don't. Why are you so stupid?" Bai Yanran's tears fell like rain. If she had known that Yi Fei would fall into a desperate situation in order to save her, she would rather stay and fight to the death than watch Yi Fei jump into the Fire Eye and die. Is this guy crazy? Wang Xiu was also frightened by Yi Fei's crazy actions. One had to know that this was the Earth's core Fire Eye, a terrifying divine flame that could even burn consciousness. Even a Tao Lord would be burned to ashes if he jumped in, let alone a mere Lord of Heaven. However, Yi Fei turned a deaf ear. Under the horrified gazes of Du Cheng, Wang Xiu, and countless demons, he jumped into the Earth's core Fire Eye with the dragon turtle. It was like throwing a huge rock into a pool of water. With a loud boom, the Earth's core Fire Eye went completely berserk. It even spewed out a white divine flame that was as hot as the sun. It pierced through the sky and melted the void. Du Cheng and Wang Xiu were not the only ones who were terrified by such flames. Even the demon Tao Lord could only retreat frantically. In the end, when they retreated to a safe area, more than half of the demons had been burned to death by the divine flame spewing out of the Fire Eye. Wang Xiu's face was dark. The demon Tao Lord's heart was pounding in pain. Du Cheng's face was even paler than iron. He didn't expect Yi Fei to use such a method to toy with him again. It's a pity. Although you humiliated me, you lost your life. How unwise and stupid. It's really a pity for the Earth's core fire liquid. Du Cheng shook his head. He had seen Yi Fei jump into the Fire Eye with his own eyes and felt the terrifying power of the divine flame spewing out of the Fire Eye. Du Cheng didn't think that Yi Fei could survive. After all, even Du Cheng didn't dare to face such a flame head-on, let alone Yi Fei, who had jumped in. Du Cheng sighed gloomily and helplessly. With a gloomy face, he left with Li Cheng and the others. Wang Xiu stared blankly at the Fire Eye. He couldn't believe that Yi Fei had died just like that. However, he didn't feel the slightest joy of revenge. Yi Fei, why did you do this? Why did you lie to me? Outside the Valley of Fire, Bai Yanran was crying. She was very sad. Inside the Earth's core Fire Eye, Yi Fei lifted the dragon turtle's tail with a gloomy face. He threatened fiercely. "You lousy turtle! I threw the Earth's core fire liquid to you, just for show. You actually swallowed it in one gulp. Spit it out quickly." After all, a drop of Earth core fire liquid was enough to cultivate an 8th grade bloodline. In the end, the dragon turtle had swallowed it. Yifei felt his heart ache just thinking about it. The dragon turtle was like a dead pig that wasn't afraid of boiling water. It looked like it could be shaken however it wanted. After all, how could it not eat a treasure that was sent to its mouth? Anyway, it wouldn't die from being shaken a few times. Hence, the dragon turtle simply pretended to be dead and let Yifei carry it. Its tail was wagging here and there. On the other hand, Xiao Qiao was very interested in the dragon turtle's wagging. He quickly ran out with interest and started wagging the dragon turtle's tail as well. Yifei felt like vomiting blood. Helplessly, the flame in the Earth's core fire became more terrifying the deeper it went. Yifei didn't dare to casually teach the dragon turtle a lesson. He could only let Xiao Qiao drag the dragon turtle back into the beastmark space and teach it a lesson slowly. He quickly awakened the undying sword soul and started to madly absorb the invading flame energy. Chapter 2306 Bloodline Awakening. As expected, this earth fire is the key to unlocking my bloodline seal. Yifei was secretly excited. After absorbing the earth core divine fire from the bloodline pagoda, he had discovered that the earth fire could break the bloodline seal in his body. However, the earth fire at that time had been too weak. It had only allowed Yifei to comprehend the killing sword, but hadn't been able to completely awaken Yifei's bloodline. However, this place was different. This was the true fire eye of the core world. There were countless divine fires inside, and their power was more than 10 times that of the bloodline pagoda. As the earth fire burned, Yifei quickly sensed that the bloodline in his body had been stimulated by the earth fire and had become extremely restless. As Yifei activated the undying sword soul with all his might, his body continued to descend rapidly into the depths of the earth fire eye. Every time he descended a certain distance, he discovered that the earth fire's power increased by another level. When he had descended 1,000 meters, Yifei felt that his skin had become dry and cracked. Then, countless divine fires turned into scorching light that attempted to enter his body, as if they wanted to burn his body and his sky palace to ashes. Yifei's expression couldn't help but become much more serious. This earth core fiery seems to be a natural bloodline pagoda. Even though there are no divine inscriptions here, the pressure it releases is even more terrifying than a 9-level bloodline pagoda. In the face of such terrifying flames, even with the undying sword soul absorbing the divine fires, entering rashly would be courting death. Yifei hurriedly stabilized his body and then sat down within the 1,000-meter fire eye. Boom! Yifei's sky palace rumbled. Since there were no outsiders present, Yifei didn't hesitate to release the undying sword soul. An invisible sword vortex formed above his head. All the divine fires that approached Yifei were absorbed and refined by the vortex, forming a wave of scorching divine fire energy that continuously poured into Yifei's body. Gradually, Yifei felt as if his entire body had been set ablaze by the divine fire. His flesh, blood, bones, and even his sky palaces and soul were all set ablaze by the power of the divine fire. The surface of Yifei's body became charred black as layers of filthy impurities were forced out of his body under the refinement of the divine fire. They turned into grayish-white powder and fell to the ground. I didn't expect the earth core divine fire to be able to burn away the impurities in my body. Xiao Qiao, hurry up and throw Big Blackie out. This kind of divine fire will be very beneficial for Big Blackie's refinement of the divine fire liquid. Yifei reminded Xiao Qiao, but after shouting for a long time, he still didn't see the dragon turtle come out. Yifei hurriedly looked at the beastmark space and saw a huge turtle shell that blocked the space completely. Yifei could only see Xiao Qiao trying his best to push the dragon turtle out through the cracks. But when the dragon turtle heard that it was going to be barbecued outside, it refused to come out no matter what and pretended to be dead. No matter how hard Xiao Qiao tried to push the dragon turtle out, it couldn't. With regards to the dragon turtle's gluttony and laziness, Yi Fei's heart ached. He grabbed the dragon turtle on the spot and threw it into the earth fire. Roar! The dragon turtle let out a scream that was worse than a pig being slaughtered. The sound almost shook Yi Fei and Xiao Qiao's eardrums. The raging flames rushed towards the dragon turtle, but a layer of beautiful crystal armor suddenly appeared on the dragon turtle's body. It was the black tortoise dragon armor, the dragon turtle's strongest defense. Even so, the dragon turtle still felt that it wasn't safe. It shrank back again, leaving only a huge turtle shell as it circled around outside. Yi Fei was extremely depressed when he saw this. What was even more depressing was that not only did the dragon turtle's flesh not become cooked under the burning of the divine fire, its shell even became thicker and thicker. It was like a layer of special dragon armor that protected the dragon turtle firmly. At this moment, the dragon turtle seemed to realize that the flames here couldn't hurt it. This time, it carefully stuck out the tip of its tail to test the temperature. When it realized that it wasn't that hot, the dragon turtle perked up and ran out. It started to absorb the surrounding divine fire energy to temper its body. Of course, the dragon turtle had only absorbed 10% of the divine fire's power. The other 90% had been completely absorbed by the immortal sword soul and turned into endless energy that flowed into Yi Fei's body. This situation continued for 10 days. 10 days later, Yi Fei opened his eyes helplessly. It still doesn't work. 1,000 meters of earth fire energy still can't force out the bloodline seal in my body. It looks like I have to go deeper. Without stopping for too long, Yi Fei went down another 1,000 meters when he realized that 1,000 meters of earth fire wasn't enough. This caused the pressure of the earth fire to double. The dragon turtle let out a scream like a pig being slaughtered. This time, when the dragon turtle stuck out its tail, a small flame immediately appeared. The dragon turtle was so frightened that it shrank back into its shell again. Without thinking, it ran back into the beastmark space. Yi Fei was speechless. Only the dragon turtle's tail was ignited, but his entire body was on fire. He was completely on fire. Even so, the bloodline in his body was still dormant and showed no signs of awakening. Yi Fei's expression turned ugly. A 2,000-meter earth fire is equivalent to a 10-level bloodline pagoda. It still can't awaken the bloodline in my body? It looked like the bloodline seal in his body had become smarter after being stimulated by the earth fire previously. It wouldn't appear again so easily. Thinking of this, Yi Fei's eyes flashed with determination. Since 2,000 meters isn't enough, then 3,000 meters. If 3,000 meters isn't enough, then 4,000 meters. I don't believe that I can't force out the bloodline seal. The undying sword soul hung high above his head as Yi Fei's body continued to descend. 2,000 meters, 3,000 meters, 4,000 meters. Boom! Just as he descended to a depth of 5,000 meters, the pressure of the earth core fiery, I suddenly became so strong that even the immortal sword spirit found it hard to resist. Boundless flames surged over like angry waves, trying to drown Yi Fei. At this moment, Yi Fei let out a soundless roar. Stimulated by the earth fire, the originally restless bloodline in his body suddenly went berserk. Yi Fei's eyes turned crimson red. In the sky palace, the brilliant moon turned into a demonic sun. The sky bridge turned into a demonic bridge. The sky palace turned into a demonic palace. Endless blood flames were stimulated. Once again, Yi Fei's bloodline and even Yi Fei's soul burned continuously. Finally, countless innate godly patterns formed bloodline shackles that firmly bound Yi Fei. Chapter 2307. Breaking the shackles, divine fire burned for me. On the emperor's throne in the heaven palace, Yi Fei's spirit roared. Boundless divine fire was released and quickly wrapped around one of the bloodline shackles. The terrifying heat generated by the divine fire burned the shackles until they turned red and cracked. Finally, the divine runes collapsed and turned into invisible flowing light that flowed into Yi Fei's body. Seeing that it was working, Yi Fei's eyes lit up, and he quickly sent a second stream of God flame toward the second chain. Moments later, the second chain collapsed. Then a third shackle, a fourth shackle. Sensing Yi Fei's intention, the bloodline shackles seemed to have intelligence and suddenly united again. They no longer attempted to attack Yi Fei. Instead, they suddenly joined together and produced a powerful suction force that was no weaker than the invincible sword souls. They actually reversed the situation and began to steal Yi Fei's bloodline power to resist the divine fire. This stealing made Yi Fei feel a sudden emptiness in his body. It was as if all his strength had been sucked away. Then, he was shocked to see that the shackles that had stolen his bloodline power had split apart and formed new shackles. There were exactly 49 innate divine runes, which formed 49 innate divine runes that firmly sealed Yi Fei's bloodline. Yi Fei finally understood why he had broken so many bloodline shackles in the Bloodline Treasure Pagoda, but had only comprehended the Slaughter Sword and not awakened his bloodline. It turned out that these bloodline shackles could absorb his bloodline power and repair themselves. Unless I can break all these bloodline shackles in one go, I won't be able to fully awaken my bloodline. Yi Fei couldn't help but feel a little depressed when he realized this. Based on the current situation, the pressure of the earth flame, at 5,000 meters, was still unable to suppress these bloodline shackles. Yi Fei realized that there was only one path he could take if he wanted to solve the problem of his bloodline. That was to go deeper into the depths of the forest. If 5,000 meters won't do, then 6,000 meters will do. Yi Fei's eyes flashed with determination and then madness. The gap between him and Zhao Yu was too big. If he wanted to enter the deity king's palace and take Zhao Yu away, he had to become stronger. Power. I want the bloodline in my body to become stronger, not a problem that hinders me. Boom! The fiery, I was boiling, and the divine flames were like raging waves. Crimson cracks appeared in the space as Yi Fei's body reached 6,000 meters into the fiery eye of the Earth's core. This was where the true divine flames were. In the distance, Yi Fei was even more surprised to find a flame seed swaying in the fiery eye like a blossoming flower. Yi Fei's eyes lit up. He unleashed his golden body of laws, withstanding the boundless pressure all around him. Suddenly, he took a step forward and charged towards the fire seed. The undying sword soul also unleashed a dazzling sword light, instantly swallowing the fire seed into its sword body. Yi Fei immediately felt that the blood in his body was ignited by the flame and turned into a raging fire. Under such pressure, 10 bloodline shackles were broken one after another. Yi Fei also clearly felt that his bloodline had reached grade 7 when the shackles were broken. However, Yi Fei wasn't happy. In the Bloodline Pagoda, he had also broken through to grade 7 bloodline. However, in the end, his bloodline couldn't be awakened. If I want to awaken my bloodline, I have to break all of these bloodline shackles. I can't leave a single one behind. Otherwise, these shackles will repair themselves and reseal my bloodline. Yi Fei's eyes flashed with understanding. He realized that the Eye of Flame at 6,000 meters was still unable to completely break his bloodline. He made up his mind and his body descended once again. Soon, he descended from 6,000 meters to 7,000 meters. As he continued to descend, the power of the Eye of Flame became more and more terrifying. This time, it wasn't just a dozen shackles that were broken. Almost 20 shackles were all broken. At this moment, the bloodline shackles seemed to sense the danger. They no longer worked together to resist Yi Fei. Instead, the shackles bloomed with the light of the divine inscriptions. The remaining shackles started to fuse with each other as if to form an even stronger shackle. This also cut off Yi Fei's hope of breaking the bloodline shackles. Squeak! Roar! Chow Chow and the dragon turtle became nervous at the same time. They cheered for Yi Fei together. Xiao Chao kept releasing spiritual light in an attempt to reverse the divine inscriptions. Unfortunately, these were natural divine inscriptions. Every single one of them contained traces of Tao. Xiao Chao was still young after all. It was very difficult for him to deal with these divine inscriptions. However, with Xiao Chao's help, he was able to barely stop these shackles from fusing with each other. The dragon turtle's encouragement also made Yi Fei's tired spirit burst with fighting spirit again. I can't lose. Yi Fei's body descended once again. He suddenly charged from 7,000 meters into the Eye of Flame at 8,000 meters. What appeared in the Eye of Flame here was no longer flames. Instead, it was an extremely terrifying stream of fire. Endless divine fire flowed like a river. Wherever it passed, the void was burned and cracked. All of the bloodline shackles that hadn't fused with Yi Fei's bloodline began to shatter one after another. However, the last dozen or so shackles actually fused with each other at this moment, forming a bloodline seal that was even stronger and more stable than before, which still sealed Yi Fei's bloodline. Yi Fei was completely enraged. If 8,000 meters was not enough, then 9,000 meters. Since he had already come this far, he could not give up, even if his body was already charred black, even if his sky palace was cracked. However, Yi Fei still did not give up. Bearing the enormous pressure of the entire core world, he continued to advance with great difficulty. Step by step, he continued to enter the core region of the Eye of Flame. 8,100 meters, 8,000 meters, 300 meters, 8,500 meters, 8,900 meters, 8,999 meters. Boom! When Yi Fei stepped into the core region of the Eye of Flame with great difficulty, he felt that he was no longer facing the pressure of heaven and earth. It was the pressure of the entire core world. Under this pressure, even the undying sword soul had reached its limit. The sword soul wailed as if it was afraid. The whirlpool formed by the sword light flickered as if it was going to collapse at any moment. Yi Fei could not help but be shocked. He had not expected the pressure of the core region of the Eye of Flame to be so terrifying. It was so terrifying that even the undying sword soul could not withstand it. However, when he saw the last bloodline shackle on his body flickering like a candle in the wind, Yi Fei's eyes suddenly became resolute. Hold on a little longer. As long as I can hold on a little longer, I will definitely be able to break this damned bloodline seal. Undying sword soul, hold on for me. Dong! Yi Fei's footsteps were as heavy as a mountain. Ignoring the sword spirit's mournful cries, he once again took a step forward due to the intense pain of his body being torn apart. Chapter 23:08. Sky Ghost Forbidden Area. The 10,000-meter-wide Eye of Flame was the most violent region of the Eye of Flame. When he stepped into this region, Yi Fei felt as if the entire core world was crushing down on him. The last bloodline shackle on his body could no longer withstand the pressure and shattered with a loud boom. Just as Yi Fei thought that the destruction of the shackle would mean that he had broken the bloodline seal, Yi Fei could clearly feel another clear, innate divine inscription turn into a dazzling star atlas within his body. Yi Fei's face was filled with shock. Besides these divine inscription shackles, there are actually other bloodline seals on my body. Furthermore, this seal was even stronger than the divine inscription shackles and had more destructive power. It also seemed to contain some sort of demonic power. The moment he sensed this demonic power, Yi Fei's heart was filled with all sorts of negative emotions. These emotions made Yi Fei unable to help but reveal a terrified expression. He realized that even the 10,000-meter-wide Eye of Flame was unable to suppress the demonic power of the Star Atlas. At this moment, the demonic power of the Star Atlas was slowly invading his rationality. This made Yi Fei involuntarily recall the 2 times he had unintentionally activated his bloodline. The feeling of being controlled by the demonic power was exactly the same as before, except that it was even more severe. After all, the first 2 times, Yi Fei had unintentionally activated it, and his bloodline had quickly sealed itself. This time, he had intentionally activated it. It was as if he had opened a cage and wanted to completely release the sealed power of his bloodline. The deep demonic nature began to affect him. However, his remaining rationality was telling Yi Fei that if he didn't think of a way to break free from the control of this demonic power, he would very likely lose himself completely. Within the Eye of Flame, Yi Fei's eyes were red as he let out a demonic roar. He realized that even the 10,000-meter-wide Eye of Flame was unable to suppress the demonic power of the Star Atlas. Suddenly, Yi Fei's entire body was filled with killing intent and coldness as he gripped the undying sword's soul tightly. With a loud bang, he slashed at the bottom of the fire eye. However, this time, Yi Fei didn't use the Sword of Slaughter. Instead, he used a brand new sword technique, the Solitary Sword. Accompanied by a grayish-white sword light, everything within the Eye of Flame withered and withered. The pressure that was enough to crush a mountain peak was actually cut through by the sword. Relying on his last bit of consciousness, Yi Fei's demonic body turned into a black bolt of lightning and charged into the deepest part of the fire eye, where the flame spark was located. At this time, there seemed to be a force in the deepest region of the flame that was awakened by Yi Fei's intrusion. The flame seed suddenly shot out two beams of flame light, which were like two scorching eyes that quickly scanned Yi Fei. A cold voice resounded in the entire Eye of the Flame. Humans have stepped into the forbidden land of heavenly ghosts. Boom! Boundless fiery light condensed into two lantern-sized eyes. The Eye of Flame seemed to have its own consciousness. It was awakened by Yi Fei's intrusion and quickly transformed into a huge divine flame giant. The divine flame giant roared and spat out endless divine flames that melted the void and formed special spatial cracks. However, Yi Fei didn't seem to feel anything in the face of such a powerful divine flame attack. At this moment, his entire consciousness was controlled by the demonic power of the Star Atlas. When he discovered that he was being attacked, this demonic power instantly turned into a terrifying killing intent. An even more terrifying beam of sword light formed a grayish-white sword light pillar that instantly collided with the divine flame giant's fire pillar. The fire pillar was then annihilated. The solitary sword's power could not only kill enemies, but could also annihilate the enemy's attack. At the same time, the 5 divine patterns on the dark iron heavy sword in Yi Fei's left hand were all ignited by the demonic power. Instantly, a brilliant divine lord-level attack erupted and charged towards the divine flame giant. Human die. The divine flame giant was suddenly enraged. 2 twisted ghost horns suddenly grew out of its huge magma head. The ghost horns then emitted a strange vortex that frantically absorbed the surrounding Eye of Flame. The divine flame in the earth core fiery eye suddenly went berserk and turned into streams of light that fused with the ghost horns. As the flames fused, the divine flame giant's body grew bigger and bigger. Its realm also grew higher and higher. When it had first awakened, it had only been at the Lord of Heaven realm. In the blink of an eye, it had reached the Tao Lord realm. If the divine flame giant was allowed to continue condensing divine flame, it would soon reach the divine Lord level. In his consciousness, Yi Fei became anxious. The demonic power that controlled him also instinctively sensed great danger. Roar! Yi Fei's mouth suddenly emitted a terrifying demonic sound. Countless complex information suddenly appeared in his mind. When this information was combined, Yi Fei's pitch-black eyes flashed with endless coldness. Yi Fei also coldly spat out 2 words that shook the Eye of Flame. God! Tribulation! Yi Fei's flame eye trembled, and his blood surged. Boundless blood-colored flames burned Yi Fei's body, and his killing intent transformed into a terrifying blood-colored sword. It was like a god-slaying tribulation, and as soon as it appeared, the space around it stopped moving. The God Flame giant, which was in the middle of condensing God Flame, suddenly began to tremble. Then, a beam of light from the blood sword shattered the void and pierced the divine flame giant's body. The divine flame giant roared unwillingly. Its body completely disintegrated and exploded into countless sparks. The demonic star chart also dimmed after exhausting its bloodline energy. It turned back into a stream of light and fused into Yi Fei's body. Dong, his body, which had lost control of the demonic power, fell heavily to the ground. Yi Fei realized that the dark force, divine power, and bloodline energy in his body had all been used up after being controlled by the demonic power for a short while. This was also the reason why the star chart dissipated. It seems that the demonic power of the star chart can only be awakened by relying on my strength. If the strength in my body is used up, the star chart will also fall silent without the support of my strength. Yi Fei thought to himself. However, Yi Fei still had a lingering fear when he thought about the feeling of being completely controlled by the demonic power. It seems that this is what the heavenly Tao tree said about the hidden danger in my bloodline. If I want to completely control the earthly emperor's bloodline, I have to find a way to dissolve the demonic power of the star chart. Yi Fei struggled to get up from the ground. He started to communicate with the beast-marked space with his consciousness. Xiao Chao's worried eyes immediately peeked out from the space. Obviously, Yi Fei was frightened when he was controlled by the demonic power just now. When he saw that Yi Fei was fine, Xiao Chao quickly ran out. He took out a porcelain bottle and poured it into Yi Fei's mouth. Before Yi Fei could understand what was going on, he felt 2 drops of strange liquid enter his mouth. Then, they turned into a huge amount of energy and started to restore his strength. Chapter 2309 Heavenly Ghost's Inheritance. Wait a minute, isn't my bloodline sealed? How can I feel the power of my bloodline? Yi Fei was shocked. He quickly used his consciousness to feel his body. Then, he was pleasantly surprised to find that he could indeed feel the fluctuations of his bloodline. Moreover, it was not a 7th grade bloodline, but a 9th grade bloodline. I actually awakened a 9th grade bloodline. Yi Fei's heart was filled with shock. Then, he felt very puzzled. The seal on the star map was still in his body. How could he awaken his bloodline? I can obtain a 9th grade bloodline by breaking the bloodline seal. Does that mean that I can obtain an even stronger bloodline by breaking the star map? Yi Fei was shocked. Then, he felt a wave of exhaustion. The divine fire liquid could only replenish the depletion of his bloodline, but it could not replenish the dark force that he had lost. For the sake of his livelihood, the dragon turtle was generous for once. He searched around his body and took out a pile of dark stones. He pushed them to Yi Fei reluctantly. Yi Fei and Xiao Chao's faces darkened. This black turtle actually hid so many, but seeing that the dragon turtle was tactful, Yi Fei did not pursue the matter. He quickly awakened his undying sword soul and refined all the dark stones to replenish his dark force. Even so, Yi Fei spent a total of 3 days to completely recover the dark force and divine power in his body. At this time, half a month had passed since Yi Fei entered the Fire Eye. Yi Fei, who was cultivating, did not know that because the giant of divine fire had been killed by the god's tribulation, the flames in the earth core fire were extinguishing layer by layer. At first, the extinguishing was not obvious, but as time passed, the flames were extinguishing faster and faster. The temperature of the entire Fire Valley was also decreasing rapidly. The first to discover this change were a few Lord of Heaven who had come to the Fire Valley to search for fire seeds. When they discovered that the largest fire eye in the entire Fire Valley was gradually extinguishing, out of caution, they did not take the risk to investigate. Instead, they used the fastest speed to send this news back to the Earth's core city. Therefore, this news quickly spread in the Earth core city and attracted the attention of countless Lord of Heaven. Another person who also attracted attention was Bai Yanran. Although Yi Fei asked Bai Yanran to leave the core world as soon as possible, Bai Yanran did not leave. Her personality determined that she would not abandon Yi Fei and escape alone. Bai Yanran had even decided that if Yi Fei really died, she would seek revenge on Wang Xiu and Du Chong even if she had to sacrifice her life. For this reason, Bai Yanran even gathered all the Lord of Heaven sent by the Lord Pan Palace to search for her to fight against Du Chong and Wang Xiao. However, Du Chong was powerful and unparalleled in speed. It was difficult to find a match for him under the Lord of Heaven. Wang Xiao was also protected by the Demon Tao Lord. It was also difficult to kill him. However, the battle between Bai Yanran, Wang Xiao, and Du Chong still shook the entire core world. Many Lord of Heaven could not help but come to watch the battle. Today was the final battle between Bai Yanran, Wang Xiao, and Du Chong to resolve their grievances. The entire core city was clearly divided into 3 areas. The Lord Pan Palace occupied one area, Wang Xiao occupied another, and Du Chong occupied the largest area. He even joined forces with Wang Xiao to target Bai Yanran. They also wanted to drive the Lord Pan Palace's forces out of the core world in one fell swoop. At this moment, a Lord of Heaven who had gone to the Valley of Fire rushed back at full speed. Something big has happened. The core fiery eye of the Valley of Fire has been extinguished. What nonsense are you talking about? The core fiery eye has always existed since the heavenly ghost ancient emperor established the heavens. As long as the heavens are not extinguished, the earth fire will not be extinguished. How can it be extinguished? Someone immediately retorted. The Lord of Heaven smiled bitterly and said solemnly, "It's up to you to believe it or not. We were ordered to search for the fire seed. I really don't know how to explain it to our families now that the earth fire has been extinguished." In a city of divine kings, the use of earth fire to enhance one's bloodline was not unique to the Lord Pan Palace. It was just that the Lord Pan Palace had the bloodline pagoda, so the effect was even more obvious. The extinguishing of the earth fire this time would undoubtedly affect the interests of many. In the Lord Pan Palace's area, these Lord of Heaven who had been ordered to search for Bai Yanran were also painstakingly persuading Bai Yanran to return to the Lord Pan Palace with them. After all, the family Wang was not a small faction, and the Divine King Palace was the overlord of the city of Divine Kings. It was undoubtedly unwise for Bai Yanran to clash with these 2 factions. At this moment, news of the extinguishing of the earth fire came from afar. Bai Yanran's gloomy mood immediately became excited. It must be Yi Fei. He's still alive. I should have known. If he can extinguish the core of the bloodline pagoda, he must be able to extinguish the core of the Valley of Fire as well. No wonder he jumped into the core of the earth fire of his own accord. No, I have to go and take a look. Whoosh! Bai Yanran quickly rushed out of the earth core city and rushed towards the Valley of Fire again. Only the Lord of Heaven of the Lord Pan Palace remained. They looked at each other in dismay. Is the Yi Fei that young miss mentioned the demon who smashed the testing crystal, destroyed the testing pagoda, dismantled the bloodline pagoda, and extinguished the earth fire? Other than this demon, anyone else would have been beaten to death if they dared to do such a thing. Uncle Master Bai has instructed us to keep an eye on young Miss Yanran when we came in. We can't let her have anything to do with that demon. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go. The Lord of Heaven of the Lord Pan Palace hurriedly chased after Yi Fei. The same situation was happening in the Divine King Palace's area. When he heard that the earth fire had been extinguished, and that it happened to be the largest core of the fire that Yi Fei had jumped into, Du Chong's gloomy expression suddenly became ferocious. Yi Fei, you've got guts. You didn't die after jumping into the core of the fire. But it's good that you didn't die. This time, no matter what, I, Du Chong, must get the earth fire essence. Boom! Du Chong turned into a cloud of fire and charged into the sky. After Du Chong revealed his identity, Li Chong and the other Lord of Heaven weren't the only ones following him. The other Lord of Heaven of the Divine King Palace who had been training in the core of the earth also gathered under Du Chong's command. Family Wang's spies eventually spread the news to the demon's area. When he heard the news, the demon Tao Lord laughed maniacally. Ha ha ha, that's great. I didn't expect that ancient rumor to be true. We're rich now. What rumor? Wang Xiao asked curiously in a sharp voice. The demon Tao Lord shuddered and instinctively took a few steps away from Wang Xiao. He explained with a straight face. There has always been a rumor in the core of the earth that the inheritance of the Heaven Ghoul race will open when the earth fire is extinguished. However, The earth fire is too strong. Even Tao lords like us will be burned to ashes after a long time. I didn't expect that human youth to succeed. Chapter 23:10. The beginning of the battle, strange. Why is the temperature of the earth core fiery? Dropping so quickly. 3 days later, Yi Fei finished his cultivation. The first thing he did when he opened his eyes was to discover that something was wrong with the earth core fiery eye. Other than the core of the fiery eye where he was, there were no traces of divine fire anywhere else. Could it be that the divine fire giant swallowed too much divine fire and caused the amount of divine fire in the fiery eye to drop? Yi Fei speculated, then walked towards the place where the divine fire giant had been destroyed. However, the power of the divine tribulation was too great. The divine fire giant's body was destroyed and turned into sparks that scattered in all directions. At this time, Xiao Qiao seemed to have discovered something. He ran out curiously and grabbed at one of the countless sparks. Xiao Qiao, watch out! Yi Fei was shocked. After all, this was the earth core divine fire that could even burn the consciousness. However, the next scene made Yi Fei's expression turn strange. He saw Xiao Qiao reach out. Not only was he not harmed by the divine fire, he even grabbed a shiny red bead from within. There was a faint burning aura flowing inside the bead. Yi Fei was even more surprised when he sensed that aura. He realized that the red bead that Xiao Qiao grabbed was very likely the fire seed of the earth core fiery eye. But if it's a fire seed, why did it turn into a divine fire giant? Alright, it seemed to have mentioned something about a heavenly ghost forbidden area. Could this earth core fiery eye also be a relic of the heavenly ghost tribe? The heavenly ghost tribe was the original owner of the earth core world. Later on, for unknown reasons, the heavenly ghost tribe suddenly went extinct. However, there were many relics of the heavenly ghost tribe left in the earth core world. Moreover, these relics were very hidden. Yi Fei also didn't expect that there would be a heavenly ghost forbidden area hidden in the earth core fiery eye. Xiao Qiao, use your heaven and earth god's eyes and see if there's anything special about the forbidden land of heavenly ghosts. Yi Fei still felt heartache when he thought of the last 2 drops of godly fire liquid he had swallowed. Hearing Yi Fei's words, the beautiful butterfly vertical eye on Xiao Qiao's forehead blossomed with a brilliant divine light. This divine light could pierce through the void and could sense energy fluctuations that normal martial artists couldn't. Suddenly, Xiao Qiao discovered something and pointed his finger upwards. Yi Fei was very depressed. Xiao Qiao, I wanted you to sense the forbidden heavenly ghost area, not look up. Xiao Qiao's face darkened, but he still pointed firmly above the earth core fiery eye. Then, he grabbed the dragon turtle by the tail and hurried back into the beastmark space. At this time, Yi Fei clearly sensed that there was a strong sound of something breaking through the air coming from above the earth core fiery eye. Someone actually entered the earth core fiery eye. Yes, the extinguishing of the earth core fiery eye will definitely attract the attention of others. I've wasted so much time here. Yi Fei's expression was grave as he stared at the sky above the earth core fiery eye. Countless flames broke through the sky. As the earth core fiery eye was extinguished and the fire seed was also controlled by Yi Fei, the remaining divine fire in the earth core fiery eye was no longer a threat to the powerful Lord of Heaven. Soon, Yi Fei saw a dozen figures breaking through the divine fire and rushing down. Yi Fei. Bai Yanran. Yi Fei was very surprised. He didn't expect Bai Yanran to be the first to rush down, and she even brought so many Lord of Heaven from the Lord Pan Palace with her. He couldn't help but feel a warm current in his heart. He felt that Bai Yanran was quite a nice girl. But the next moment, Yi Fei was very depressed. The first thing Bai Yanran did when she rushed down was to raise her eyebrows and suddenly punch him. Yi Fei, you're really a bad person. You were fine in the earth core fiery eye, but you didn't say anything. You made me cry so much. When she thought about how she would cry when she saw Yi Fei jump into the earth core fiery eye, Bai Yanran's face turned red. She glared and punched Yi Fei again to vent her anger. Of course, Bai Yanran's punch looked very strong, but she didn't use much strength at all. The eyelids of the Lord of Heaven from the Lord Pan Palace twitched when they saw this scene. They looked at Yi Fei with increasingly unfriendly expressions. Yi Fei was even more depressed. He explained helplessly, "If I told you that I had a way to protect myself when I jumped into the Earth Core Fiery Eye, then Du Chong and his group wouldn't have let you go so easily. By the way, why did you come down? What happened outside?" "What happened? Let me tell you about it." A cold voice suddenly came from the Earth Core Fiery Eye. At the same time, the chaotic divine fire exploded even more chaotically. Du Chong stepped out of the Earth Core Fiery Eye with a cold expression on his face. Even though he was alone, he ignored Bai Yanran and the other Lord of Heaven from the Lord Pan Palace. His gaze landed coldly on Yi Fei. "You do have some ability. You aren't inferior to me in terms of speed. You actually managed to come out unscathed after jumping into the Earth Core Fiery Eye. If I'm not wrong, you must have some kind of treasure on you that can withstand the pressure of the Earth Core Fiery Eye." "What? A treasure that can withstand the Earth Core divine fire?" The Lord of Heaven from the Lord Pan Palace stared at Yi Fei in shock. They finally understood why Yi Fei had been able to extinguish the Earth Core fire. Yi Fei's expression was calm. He neither admitted nor denied it. He only looked at Du Chong with a half-smile. "Du Chong, so what if I have it? And so what if I don't?" "You have it. Hand it over, and I can leave your corpse intact. If you don't, then I'm very sorry. I can only crush your corpse to find the divine fire liquid and the treasure." Du Chong's eyes turned cold. At the same time, the aura of a wolf king appeared from his body. It swept forward in an overwhelming manner. Feeling this kind of power, the Lords of Heaven of Lord Pan Hall all protected by Yanran, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. After all, a man's reputation was like a tree's shadow. Du Chong's reputation as the #1 Lord of Heaven was too well known in the city of divine kings. Bai Yanran glared at him. "Du Chong, how dare you threaten so many of us by yourself? Do you believe that I can make you die here with a single word? Make me die?" Du Chong sneered mockingly. He glanced at Bai Yanran and the others in disdain. "Your Lord Pan Palace may have some fame, but compared to our God King Palace, you're like an ant compared to an elephant. If I die, it'll be a declaration of war against the God King Palace. Du Chong, will stand here and let you kill me as you please. Do you dare to attack me, you lackeys of the Lord Pan Palace?" Du Chong's expression was arrogant as he insulted them on the spot. Bai Yanran was so angry that her body trembled. The Lord of Heaven from the Lord Pan Palace were also furious, but no one dared to attack Du Chong. After all, Du Chong's status was obvious. They couldn't bear the responsibility of starting a war between the Lord Pan Palace and the God King Palace. Even Bai Yanran bit her lip and suppressed her anger that was about to explode. "I dare." A sudden voice interrupted Du Chong like a clap of thunder. Chapter 23:11. The gates of hell open you. Du Chong had a ferocious smile on his face. He took a big step forward and suddenly punched forward. The remaining divine fire in the fiery eye was attracted and condensed into a giant fiery fist, which smashed towards Yi Fei's body. Du Chong's mocking voice came from the void. "Yi Fei, do you think you can go against me just because you are faster than me? In my eyes, the Lord of Heaven, you, and even Bai Shizhong are all small fries." Boom! Du Chong punched out with his other fist. This time, he actually condensed all the remaining divine fire in the eye of the flame to form an even bigger divine fire fist. He punched forward, causing the void to explode and the space to tremble. Many of the heaven monarchs from Lord Pan Hall had an ugly and solemn expression. They asked themselves honestly that they had no way to resist Du Chong's terrifying flaming divine fist. Bai Yanran's expression also became tense at this time. In the face of Du Chong's horrible flame god fist, it was difficult for her to resist. After all, this was the strongest Lord of Heaven from the palace of the deity king. "Yi Fei die!" Du Chong roared again. As he condensed the divine fire fist, he also unleashed his natural mystique. A pair of wolf wings appeared behind Du Chong, causing his speed to turn into a series of afterimages. In the afterimages, the divine fire fist constantly adjusted its direction. No matter how fast Yi Fei used his advantage, he couldn't escape the range of the divine fire fist. After all, Du Chong's speed wasn't much slower than Yi Fei's. Du Chong was also very confident that this punch would be able to severely injure Yi Fei. However, Du Chong had miscalculated one thing. Yi Fei didn't make any move to dodge. As the divine fire fist smashed towards him, the dark steel heavy sword let out a deafening sword cry. It sounded like the collapse of mountains and rivers, or the whistling of stars. This was Yi Fei's sword. The stronger the opponent, the stronger the sword. Once the sword was unleashed, it wouldn't stop until it killed the enemy. As if sensing this intent, the dark steel heavy sword's sword light suddenly turned into a heavy sword mountain that stretched across the sky. It shattered the void, and the sword shattered the heavens. With a loud explosion, Yi Fei's heavy sword light and Du Chong's flame god's fist of fire shattered. The sky was filled with shattered sword light, and there were also shattered sparks everywhere. Yi Fei actually tied with Du Chong in this battle. Bai Yanran opened her mouth in shock. Even if Yi Fei had won the title of the King of 100 Battles, she didn't think Yi Fei would be Du Chong. I've underestimated you, you lowly soldier. Yi Fei, take another move from me if you have the guts. Divine Fire Slash. Du Chong roared angrily. His confident punch had been shattered by Yi Fei's sword. This deeply infuriated Du Chong. As he raged, the sparks that filled the sky once again condensed. This time, it wasn't the divine fire fist, but the divine fire slash. This was the powerful Lord of Heaven's mystique created by the fire god of the Divine King Palace. At the Lord of Heaven realm, he could unleash the might of a Tao Lord. Bai Yin ran, and the Lord of Heaven of the Lord Pan Palace broke out in cold sweat when they saw Du Chong use such a terrifying mystique on his second attack. Yi Fei's expression also became much more serious at this moment. He was no longer purely using his divine power. The moment Du Chong condensed the flaming divine blade, he let out a low roar, and the black iron heavy sword suddenly exploded with a strong killing intent and death aura. That was the sword of killing. It was capable of killing all living things and slaughtering all ghosts and deities. When this sword light appeared on Yi Fei's body, the entire area was filled with boundless killing intent and death intent. A terrifying illusion appeared in front of many people's eyes. It was a sword light that formed a sea of blood that was rolling towards them. But soon, they saw an even more terrifying phenomenon above the sea of blood. It was a flame god king wielding a flame god blade that actually split the sea of blood in half. Yi Fei, I will definitely kill you this time. The shadow of a divine wolf suddenly appeared behind Du Chong. This was his mystique intent, the wolf god intent. Du Chong had relied on the amplification of his intent to forcibly break through the sea of blood formed by the divine fire blade. The divine fire blade turned into a flaming cloud that rapidly slashed towards Yi Fei's body. On Yi Fei's body, a strong fighting spirit and murderous intent appeared. You have intent, but I don't? Do you really think my divine fire blade is just a decoration? Divine fire blade slash. Rumble. The torn blood sea suddenly boiled. Accompanied by Yi Fei's sudden burst of blood battle will, the two halves of the blood sea quickly merged, forming a special blood-colored Tai Chi like a millstone. It blocked the impact of Du Chong's flaming divine blade and forced Du Chong to take a step back. This step infuriated Du Chong to the extreme. As the strongest person in the Divine King Palace, the Lord of Heaven had actually been forced to take a step back by a small fry. This was simply humiliating. Du Chong's body suddenly burned with a huge divine fire bloodline. As he strengthened the divine fire blade, he also activated the strongest mystique of the divine fire blade, the Divine King's wrath. At this moment, Du Chong was like an enraged divine king who had raised his divine blade and was about to slay a demon. You've come at the right time. I'll use you to test the power of my bloodline. Yi Fei's eyes suddenly lit up. At that moment, divine flames started burning on his body. Moreover, those flames weren't any weaker than Du Chong's divine flames. With the support of the divine flames, Yi Fei's eyes lit up. The power of the divine fire blade became even faster and stronger. The entire blood-colored taiji burned and clashed with Du Chong's flaming godly saber once again. The entire Eye of Fire shook violently from the collision of these two mystiques. The space shattered like a mirror with a crashing sound. Countless cracks began to appear in the void. Suddenly, another boulder bigger than a mountain exploded from the walls of the fiery eye and flew towards Yi Fei and Du Chong. However, before Yi Fei and Du Chong could dodge, a huge evil spirit statue appeared behind the shattered boulder. This statue occupied 2/3 of the fiery eye. At the same time, the evil spirit opened its mouth, and a strange door carved with countless divine inscriptions slowly appeared. The legends are true. This is the Heaven Ghoul tribe's gate of hell. Whoever can enter the gate of hell and not die will obtain the Heaven Ghoul tribe's inheritance. In the distance, an elderly lord of heaven suddenly rushed over. He was very old, and his entire body exuded a deathly aura. It was obvious that he didn't have much time left. However, when he saw the gate of hell, this elderly lord of heaven was actually filled with youthful vitality and rushed towards the gate of hell without any regard for anything else. Clearly, this elderly lord of heaven wanted to take advantage of his limited lifespan to rush into the gate of hell and take a gamble to obtain the opportunity to break through to the Tao Lord realm. Chapter 23:12. The Gathering of Heroes, Senior Golden Saber. The old Lord of Heaven did not come alone. Beside him were a few other Lord of Heaven companions. They were the first to discover the extinguished earth fire, but they did not dare to enter. It was not until Bai Yanran and Du Chong entered that they mustered up their courage and rushed in. Golden Saber, in particular, had reached the end of his lifespan. He was old, and he was desperate to find a chance to break through his cultivation level and extend his lifespan. Unfortunately, before Golden Saber could find chance, he was killed by Du Chong's divine saber. Du Chong, Senior Golden Saber, has never offended you. Even if we sent back the news, it was Senior Golden Saber's idea. Why are you so ruthless? The Lord of Heaven who rushed over were on the verge of exploding with rage. A disdainful sneer appeared on Du Chong's face. Old man, your death is not to be regretted. This earth fire belongs to me, Du Chong. Whoever dares to fight for it will be my enemy in the palace of the King of Gods. The Lord of Heaven who rushed over were shocked. Yi Fei was also surprised that Du Chong wanted to monopolize the forbidden land of the heavenly ghost. No wonder he was so ruthless. As the gates of hell opened, Du Chong no longer fought with Yi Fei. Instead, he used thunderous means to announce his ownership of the Fire Eye. The Lord of Heaven present were all enraged by Du Chong. However, behind Du Chong stood the powerful palace of the King of Gods. This made the Lord of Heaven angry, but not daring to say anything. Du Chong was also satisfied with the effect he had caused. He coldly glanced at the Lord of Heaven. If you don't dare to fight for it, then scram. Whoever steps into the gates of hell will end up like this old thing. After saying that, Du Chong lifted his foot and planned to walk into the gates of hell, completely ignoring everyone. Even Bai Yanran was furious with his attitude. Yi Fei sneered. He suddenly raised his sword and walked towards Du Chong again. Du Chong, you seem to have forgotten something. Our battle is not over yet. Dong! The black iron heavy sword flashed again and slashed towards Du Chong. But this time, Du Chong didn't attack. Instead, he quickly dodged and said coldly, "Our battle has ended long ago. The moment you attacked me, you were already a dead man. But you don't deserve to be killed by me. You only deserve to be killed by my subordinates. Haha, big brother, let us deal with this demon called Yi Fei. We guarantee that he will die a very, very miserable death." Another familiar voice came from the sky above the flame eye. It was Li Chong and the other Lord of Heaven. Behind them were a dozen lords of heaven dressed in the robes of the God King Palace. When these lords of heaven saw the gates of the abyss open, their eyes flashed with shock, followed by joy. Yi Fei's face darkened. He still had confidence in fighting Du Chong alone. But with Li Chong and the other lords of heaven from the God King Palace, he wouldn't be a match for them unless he could release another deity tribulation. What made him depressed was that he couldn't release the deity tribulation due to the seal of the star chart. Even the power of his bloodline was very weak. Although he was unwilling, Yi Fei helplessly realized that he probably wouldn't have the chance to kill a dangerous enemy like Du Chong this time. Du Chong's eyes flashed with mockery. He arrogantly ordered, "Li Chong, you guys came at the right time. Now from now on, seal the flame eye. Kill anyone who dares to take a step near the gates of the abyss." "Yes, senior brother." The Lord of Heaven from the God King Palace exuded a murderous aura. Two of the Lord of Heaven immediately guarded the gates of the abyss. The remaining Lord of Heaven quickly approached Yi Fei with Li Chong and the others. They wanted to kill Yi Fei on the spot. Yi Fei's expression immediately became very serious. He was already prepared to give up on entering the gates of the abyss if things went wrong. Bai Yinran's eyes suddenly flashed with determination when she saw this. She ignored the Lord of Heaven from the Lord Pan Palace and suddenly rushed to Yi Fei's side. "Yi Fei, I'll help you. Back off. This is between me and Du Chong. It has nothing to do with the Lord Pan Palace." Yi Fei shook his head. He understood that Bai Yinran meant well. How could he let the Lord Pan Palace come into contact with an overlord like the God King Palace? "I can't back off." Bai Yinran looked at Yi Fei and said seriously, "I'm helping you as a friend. It has nothing to do with the Lord Pan Palace." Bai Yinran expressed her stance firmly. Her attitude made Du Chong's expression turn extremely cold. "Bai Yinran, you know that you might die if you do this." Even though Bai Yinran was a core member of the Lord Pan Palace and was a beauty herself, Du Chong still wouldn't show any mercy if she angered him. "So be it. Bai Yinran, have never been afraid of death since I embarked on the martial path." Bai Yinran exuded a heroic aura, like a female warrior who was about to fly into a rage. But at this moment, a sharp voice came from above the fiery eye. "Kiki die. Bai Yinran, you can't die so easily before I play with you." Demonic chi surged as a group of demons surrounded Wang Xiao and rushed into the fiery eye. Behind the demons were more heavenly lords who had received the news and were rushing toward the fiery eye. "Wang Xiao, you shameless pervert." Seeing Wang Xiao again, Bai Yinran's beautiful eyes flickered with coldness. Yi Fei hurriedly pulled her back and shook his head slightly. "Wang Xiao and Du Chong are in the same boat. It's not good for us to confront them directly. Let's observe the situation first." The opening of the forbidden land of the heavenly ghost had undoubtedly affected many people's nerves. Instead of confronting Du Chong head-on, it was better to wait and see. Du Chong's expression turned completely cold when Wang Xiao appeared with the demons. "Wang Xiao, if you take the demons and retreat, we can still be friends. This fire already belongs to the palace of the God King. Mr. Du, I'm very willing to be friends with you, but our family Wang is only cooperating with the demons. We're not subordinates. I can ask them, but I can't order them. Moreover, I can't make the decision now." Wang Xiao shook his head and made a very helpless expression, but everyone could see that Wang Xiao's face was like a villain who had achieved success. Du Chong's eyes suddenly turned cold. "If you can't make the decision, who can?" "I can make the decision." A steady voice came from above the fire eye. Then, a demon youth carrying a divine hammer coldly descended to the bottom of the fire eye. Seeing this youth, the demons present, including the demon sovereign, all knelt down and shouted, "Greetings, young Lord Emolai." Emolai, the young lord of the demon race. Du Chong, the Lord of Heaven of the palace of the God King. Bai Yinran, the genius soul augmentation master of the Lord Pan Palace, one of the top 10 beauties of the city of the God King. And this demon Lord Yi, a small fry. It's fine if you don't mention him. Wang Xiao proudly introduced the forces present. And me, Feng Jie. I also want to enter the gates of hell and have a share of the pie. At this time, a large group of heavenly monarchs appeared in the sky above the fire eye. There were men and women, old and young. Almost all of the heavenly monarchs who were cultivating in the Earth's core city had rushed over. Chapter 23:13. Fiery I anomaly with the influx of Feng Jie's scattered Lord of Heaven. The atmosphere in the Earth core fiery, I became even more subtle. The strongest factions were undoubtedly the godly king's palace and the demon, followed by Feng Jie's scattered Lord of Heaven. Obviously, these lords of heaven also knew that they would not be able to compete with the palace of the divine king and the demon dwellers if they were to fight alone. However, if they were to join forces, the palace of the divine king and the demon dwellers would have to be careful with their advantage in numbers. On the other hand, Yi Fei and the godly king's palace had offended both the godly king's palace and the demon, so they were the least favored by the Lord of Heaven present. Even the Lord of Heaven of the Lord Pan's palace became extremely nervous. Yi Fei, the situation is getting more and more complicated. We don't have much of a chance of winning now that we've entered the gates of hell, Bai Yanran whispered. But won't we be letting Du Chong and Wang Xiu take advantage of us, just like that? Yi Fei was also very depressed. If he'd known that extinguishing the Earth core fire would cause such an unforeseen event, he would have been gentler when he broke the bloodline seal. Unfortunately, it had already happened. Du Chong and Mo Lai's expressions turned grave in the face of the sudden influx of scattered Lord of Heaven. No matter how strong they were, they couldn't expel all the Lord of Heaven in one go. Du Chong stared coldly at the first few Lord of Heaven that had come down. If it weren't for these people spreading the news, how could so many Lord of Heaven have squeezed into the fiery eye? However, he didn't realize that if it weren't for these people, he wouldn't have known that the Earth core fire had been extinguished and deduced that Yi Fei wasn't dead. At this moment, Wang Xiu's eyes shifted. He suddenly cupped his hands and suggested to Du Chong and Mo Lai, "Young Master Mo Lai, young Master Du, given the current situation, none of us can monopolize the fiery eye. Why don't we work together? That way, our chances of obtaining the Heaven Ghoul race's treasure will be higher." Mo Lai praised, "I agree." Even the Lord of Heaven in the palace of the King of Gods was tempted. Li Chong said bluntly, "Big brother, in the current situation, if you continue to monopolize the fire eye, you will only incite public anger. Why don't you join forces with the demon dwellers? This way, even if you enter, you will have the absolute advantage." Du Chong nodded and said with a gloomy face, "I also agree. However, I have a condition. The others can enter, but only this person absolutely cannot enter. Mo Lai, to show our sincerity, let's work together and kill him first." With a whoosh, Du Chong suddenly pointed his finger at Yi Fei. All of the Lord of Heaven also looked at Yi Fei. Some were surprised, some were sympathetic, but of course, most of them were indifferent and even gloating. The Lord of Heaven in Lord Pan's palace became completely nervous. Someone even complained, "Yi Fei, great. You can't offend anyone, but you have to offend Du Chong and the demon dwellers. This time, we will all die because of you. If you are afraid of death, you can leave." Bai Yanran glared at these Lord of Heaven unhappily. Yi Fei shook his head slightly. "Don't worry, none of you will die. Bai Yanran, thank you for your help, but this is my business. It has nothing to do with you." Hearing this, Bai Yanran suddenly felt uneasy. Before she could react, Yi Fei suddenly attacked. While imprisoning Bai Yanran, he threw Bai Yanran in a fire eye. "Take Bai Yanran and leave," Yi Fei said to the Lord of Heaven in Lord Pan's palace. These Lords of Heaven all looked ashamed. However, their original purpose was to protect Bai Yanran, so they could only soar into the air and try to take Bai Yanran away. "Where are you going, Bai Yanran? Today Wang Xiu will play with you." Wang Xiu's voice was shrill as he pounced on Bai Yanran. At this moment, Yi Fei's body suddenly exploded with rage. His heavy sword whistled as it smashed towards Wang Xiu, scaring Wang Xiu. "Young Master Mo Lai, save me." Impudent. Behind Wang Xiu, the demon lord charged out again, releasing billowing demonic qi toward Yifei. On the other side, Li Chong and the others sneered and suddenly charged at Yifei. A great battle broke out again. However, no one was paying attention to this battle. Everyone, including Du Chong and Mo Lai, was looking at Bai Yanran in shock. Yifei had wanted to throw Bai Yanran out of the fire eye. To his surprise, Bai Yanran didn't get thrown out. Her body suddenly hit an invisible barrier when she flew 1,000 meters. This barrier pressed Bai Yanran's body back down. At the same time, an invisible force shattered the dark force confinement that Yifei had placed on Bai Yanran. Yifei. Bai Yanran was so angry that her eyebrows were raised. Every time Yifei threw her aside at the critical moment, Bai Yanran was going crazy. Then, another curious Lord of Heaven tried to rush out of the fire eye, but he was still pressed back down by the invisible barrier. What's going on? When we came down, there was no restriction, but when we went out, there was a barrier. Many Lord of Heaven began to try, but without exception, no one could rush out of the fire eye. Moreover, more and more Lord of Heaven came into contact with the barrier. The entire space of the flame, I began to tremble violently. Then, the originally tightly shut gates of hell on the gigantic statue of the evil ghost suddenly burst open. Countless black shadows roared out, as if they were prisoners who had been imprisoned for tens of thousands of years and had gone completely mad. One of the black shadows suddenly burrowed into the body of Golden Saber, who had been killed by Du Chong. The half-corpse of the old Lord of Heaven suddenly closed up automatically, becoming a complete human again. Roar kill. The resurrected Golden Saber did not have the slightest trace of his old appearance. Instead, he became extremely ferocious. Before Golden Saber died, there was an old friend of Golden Saber who helped him collect his corpse. At this time, the resurrected Golden Saber punched through the old friend's body with a punch, and he did not have time to react. Another black shadow burrowed into the old man's body. The old man's frightened eyes quickly turned blood red, and a cold ghost aura appeared on his body. He roared again and attacked the others. This scene deeply shocked the hearts of the Lord of Heaven present. Even Yifei's eyelids twitched violently, because one of the black shadows was almost rushing towards him. Suddenly, a scream came from one of the Lord of Heaven who was besieging Yifei. He was injured by the black iron-heavy sword, and a bloody wound appeared on his calf. However, this small wound had a fatal attraction to the surrounding black shadows. Immediately, dozens of black shadows rushed towards the Lord of Heaven. One of the black shadows even burrowed into the wound of the Lord of Heaven first. The Lord of Heaven was very fierce. When he found that the black shadow had burrowed into his wound, he immediately raised his sword and cut off his calf. However, the flesh of the cut-off calf was wriggling at this time. Under the attack of the black shadows, hands and feet strangely grew out, and even a face that was exactly the same as that of the Lord of Heaven. Chapter 23:14. Join hands to force them. The strange shadows made by Yanran forget about venting his anger on Yifei. Instead, he led the Lord of Heaven and charged back. Yifei, what are these things? I don't know. Although he was the first to enter the geocentric fire eye, it was his first time seeing the gates of hell and these shadows. When Bai Yanran came over, Yifei tried to swing his heavy sword at these shadows. However, these shadows were very cunning. They immediately turned into smoke and dissipated in the air. Boom! The heavy sword hit nothing but air. However, an enemy Lord of Heaven nearby spat out blood and retreated. As if smelling blood, one of the shadows that had dissipated suddenly gathered again and pounced on the injured Lord of Heaven. The Lord of Heaven was so frightened that his face turned pale. He no longer dared to attack Yifei. He only tried his best to move closer to Du Chong. It wasn't just the Lord of Heaven. Wang Xiao and the others also retreated under the attacks of these shadows. No one was in the mood to fight at this time. Everyone quickly huddled together and worked together to stop these shadows from getting closer. However, this was only the Divine King's palace, the demons, the Lord Pan's hall, and Feng Jie, who were relatively larger groups. The other groups either had too few people or were a motley crew that had been formed at the last minute. They did not have much cooperation. Only a small number of people chose to resist the attacks of these strange shadows. Most people attacked the barrier above the geocentric fire eye in a frenzy. They wanted to escape from this dangerous geocentric fire eye. Unfortunately, these Lord of Heaven's attacks couldn't break the invisible barrier of the geocentric fire eye. Instead, the more they attacked the barrier, the more shadows rushed out of the gates of hell. Yi Fei was the first to notice this. His expression immediately turned serious. He shouted loudly, "Quick, everyone stop! Don't attack that barrier!" At this moment, he understood that these black shadows would not appear for no reason. It was only when he threw Bai Yanran out of the fire eye and touched the invisible barrier that these black shadows were alerted. It's very likely that attacking the barrier is the key to activating these shadows. Everyone, stop attacking the barrier immediately. Kill anyone who dares to attack. Du Cheng was also a very cautious person. He quickly discovered the key to the appearance of the shadows. But unlike Yi Fei, Du Cheng didn't care at all. Yi Fei only tried to persuade her to stop. Seeing that some people didn't listen to his orders and continued to attack the barrier, more black shadows were alarmed. A flaming divine blade suddenly turned into a sea of fire and slashed forward. Not only did it burn many black shadows along the way into ashes, but several Lord of Heaven who were still attacking the barrier in fear suddenly felt a sharp pain in their bodies. Their entire bodies had been cut into two by the flaming divine blade. Countless black shadows immediately burrowed into their wounds. Even their souls couldn't escape. These few Lord of Heaven had already become puppets under the control of the black shadows. They roared crazily and pounced on the other Lord of Heaven. Kill! Feng Jie didn't show any mercy to these Lord of Heaven. Countless flaming meteors suddenly appeared in his hands and blasted forward. The few Lord of Heaven who were being controlled immediately burst into flames. Within the flames, the shrill cries of the black shadows could be faintly heard. It seems like flames can kill these black shadows. Yi Fei was a little surprised. He activated the law of earth-fire and sent out a wave of fire. Indeed, he saw a portion of the black shadows that were charging at him disperse, not daring to come into contact with the fire. The other heavenly monarchs also discovered this trick. Many of their bodies burned with flames that soared into the sky as they attempted to destroy the black shadows that were pouncing at them. But soon, these Lord of Heaven discovered something even more terrifying. No matter how they tried to kill these black shadows, it was as if they couldn't die. Just as they were burned to ashes by the flames, these ashes would reform in the blink of an eye and continue to form new black shadows. Yi Fei also tried to condense a flaming palm to grab a black shadow, but the black shadow was very cunning. Before Yi Fei's spiritual sense could investigate its body, the black shadow had already exploded into incomparably fine ashes. Like quicksand, it slipped through Yi Fei's fingers in the blink of an eye and quickly reformed into a new black shadow not far away. Young master, I know what these black shadows are. They're a ghostly army refined by the Heaven Ghoul race. These ghostly figures only appear by chance in the royal ruins of the Heaven Ghoul race. Moreover, they can't be killed. Demon Tao Lord's angry roar suddenly came from afar. His cultivation was the highest here, and he attracted the majority of the Black Shadow's attacks. His entire body was covered in demonic flames as he desperately resisted these ghostly figures while loudly reporting his discovery to Mo Lai. Mo Lai's expression immediately changed to one of endless joy. There are royal ruins of the Heaven Ghoul race in the core of the earth. That's great. My opportunity has arrived. But young Master Mo Lai, these black shadows can't be killed at all. If this continues, our Xian Qi will soon be exhausted and will become their prey. Wang Xiu's face was deathly pale as he let out a sharp cry. He was truly frightened by these black shadows. Mo Lai's expression immediately turned ugly as he looked at Wang Xiu with a trace of disdain. On the other hand, Du Chong suddenly thought of something and looked coldly at Yi Fei. He then said to Mo Lai, "Brother Mo, I have a suggestion. Since we'll only be exhausted to death by these black shadows if we stay in the fiery, why don't we send a few people into the gates of the abyss to try our luck?" "You mean to send a few scapegoats into the gates of the abyss to scout the way?" Mo Lai quickly understood Du Chong's intentions. As the young master of the demon people, he naturally wouldn't send the demon people to their deaths. Du Chong's gaze was still fixed on Yi Fei. Mo Lai immediately smiled coldly and suddenly pointed at Yi Fei. "You few, quickly enter the gates of the abyss and scout the way for us. You're going too far. We are from the Lord Pan Palace, after all." Bai Yin ran, and the Lord of Heaven from the Lord Pan Palace were furious. A cold light flashed in Yi Fei's eyes. However, when he saw Du Chong, Mo Lai, Wang Xiao, and Li Chong approaching with cold expressions, he felt a chill run down his spine. Yi Fei knew that these unexpected black shadows would not be able to stop Du Chong and the others from wanting to kill him. Not only did they want to use him to scout ahead, they also wanted him to die inside. "Our grudge has nothing to do with the Lord Pan Palace. Let them go. I'll scout ahead." Yi Fei sighed. Since he couldn't send Bai Yanran out of the Fire Eye, he could only try his best to distance himself from the Lord Pan Palace. Du Chong's face turned cold. Mo Lai stuck out his tongue and let out a bloodthirsty laugh. "This young master is ordering you, not negotiating with you. If you don't enter, then die." Boom! A chilling killing intent emerged from Mo Lai's body. The surrounding demons immediately activated their dark force and prepared to use their superpowers. Chapter 23:15. Underground fire reignited this evil thought made by Yanran's eyes widen. She had the urge to rush forward and beat Wang Xiao to death. At this moment, a hand gently patted her shoulder. "He's just a coward. Why get angry with him? Just take it as pity on him." Bai Yanran's face reddened, but when she recalled that Wang Xiao's balls had been smashed by Mad Dog in front of everyone, her face tightened and she forced herself not to laugh. However, even though Bai Yanran could hold it in, many of the Lord of Heaven couldn't hold it in and laughed out loud. Yi Fei's words and the laughter of the Lord of Heaven deeply touched Wang Xiao's reverse scale. Wang Xiao's face turned the color of a pig's liver. "Yi Fei, today Wang Xiao, will tear your mouth apart." Wang Xiao was so angry that he charged at Yi Fei like a shrew. He even let out a shrill cry that made many people shudder. Yi Fei's eyes flashed coldly. It was good that Wang Xiao had rushed out. He was confident that he could kill Wang Xiao in a one-on-one fight. "Trying to play tricks in front of us? Yi Fei, it seems like you've run out of tricks." Du Chong and Mo Lai stepped forward at the same time and attacked at the same time, cutting off any possibility of Yi Fei killing Wang Xiao alone. Li Chong, Mo Lai, and the other Lord of Heaven snorted when they saw this. They had already prepared their mystiques and blasted them forward. Finally, Feng Jie didn't make a move. However, his cold expression had already determined his attitude. He couldn't send his own people to explore the gates of hell, so the best way was to sacrifice Yi Fei and the others. "What bunch of mad dog. Today, I've learned my lesson. Bai Yanran, if you believe me, then follow me into the gates of hell." Faced with hundreds of the Lord of Heaven's attacks, no matter how strong Yi Fei was, he was no match for them. The only thing he could do was to rush into Hell's Gate and hide for the time being. "You once jumped into the Fire Eye so that you wouldn't implicate me. If I don't believe you, who else can I believe?" Bai Yanran's gaze was resolute. He ignored the Lord of Heaven beside him and rushed towards the gates of hell. The Lord of Heaven of the Lord Pan Palace smiled helplessly. After all, Yi Fei was an outsider, and they did not dare to trust him easily. However, Bai Yanran was someone they had to protect. Now that Bai Yanran was rushing to the gates of hell, how could they not follow? Thus, the Lord of Heaven of the Lord Pan's palace clenched their teeth and charged forward. At least you small fries are tactful." Du Chong snorted coldly and hurriedly stopped everyone. Compared to killing people, they preferred to use Yi Fei to scout ahead. Mo Lai and Feng Jie stared intently at Yi Fei, who was the first to rush towards the gates of hell. At this time, there was still an army of ghosts rushing out from the gates of hell. Many of the Lord of Heaven of the Lord Pan's palace clenched their teeth and prepared to fight the shadows to the death. Strangely enough, when they realized that their goal was to rush towards the gates of hell, none of these ghosts actually attacked them. They only let out strange screeches, circled around them, and turned to attack those who were unwilling to enter the gates of hell. These shadows aren't trying to kill us. They're trying to force us into the gates of hell. A trace of surprise flashed through Yi Fei's heart. Intuitively, he felt that this heavenly ghost-forbidden land was not as simple as an inheritance. Kill him. After using Yi Fei to scout the situation, the first thing Du Chong did was to kill Yi Fei. He charged forward with the Lord of Heaven beside him. He wanted to kill Yi Fei before he entered the gates of hell. Yi Fei, protect Miss Yanran. I'll cover your retreat. The Lord of Heaven of the Lord Pan's palace, who was at the back, suddenly turned around and prepared to block the pursuers. The other Lord of Heaven did the same. After all, their original goal was to protect Bai Yanran from harm. For this, they were willing to do anything, even if they had to pay with their lives. No, you can't die. Come back. Bai Yanran's eyes reddened. How could she watch these Lord of Heaven die for her? At this time, a voice entered their ears. I've said it before. If you believe me, you won't have to die. Get into the gates of hell. Bam! Yi Fei spread his azure dragon wings and instantly appeared in front of these Lord of Heaven. At the same time, a large ruby bead appeared in his hand. This bead was the fire seed of the geocentric fiery eye that Xiao Chao had discovered. At this moment, when Yi Fei crushed the bead and threw out the fire seed, he was shocked. The geocentric fiery eye, which had been extinguished, let out a loud boom. Raging flames spread rapidly from the eye of the geocentric fiery eye. In the blink of an eye, the entire geocentric fiery eye was filled with divine fire. The endless flames and high temperature burned the raging ghosts into smoke. The terrifying pressure from the geocentric fiery eye and the blazing divine fire formed the most terrifying killing weapon. The Lord of Heaven of the King of God's palace, who had used their supernatural powers to chase after Yi Fei, were suddenly ignited by the fire seed. They couldn't help but let out shrill screams. Let's go! Yi Fei grabbed by Yanran, who was still in a daze, and called out to the Lord of Heaven of the Lord Pan Palace. He led the way into the gates of the abyss. Behind them were the erupting and spreading divine fire. Du Chong, Mo Lai roared in anger. Yi Fei will kill you. Help! Young Lord, save us. The raging flames didn't devour the Lord of Heaven first, but the demon rulers who had followed in. Their cultivation levels were too low. Even with their demonized bodies, they couldn't withstand the pressure of the geocentric fiery eye. Their bodies either exploded under the terrifying pressure of the geocentric fiery eye or were devoured by the divine fire. Their celestial palaces and divine souls were instantly burned to ashes. Seeing this scene, countless lords of heaven were filled with fear. No one would have thought that Yi Fei, who seemed to be at his wit's end, would actually have such a trump card hidden. I should have known. Since this person can extinguish the divine fire, he can naturally reignite the geocentric fiery eye. Feng Jie's heart was filled with regret. Although he had no enmity with Yi Fei, this was still a land of inheritance with limited treasures. He had allowed Du Chong and Mo Lai to force Yi Fei, eliminating a group of competitors in advance. The only thing Feng Jie hadn't expected was that his indifference would lead to such severe consequences. He had actually angered Yi Fei and caused him to reignite the geocentric fiery eye. Quick, charge in. Charge into the gates of the abyss. Only by charging in can we survive. The distant demon Dao Lord suddenly roared. Because there was an invisible barrier above the geocentric fiery eye that couldn't be broken, the only thing the demon Dao Lord could do was protect Mo Lai and the other demon Lord of Heaven and charge into the gates of the abyss with all his strength. However, The gates of the abyss were different from when Yi Fei had entered. The outside of the gates of the abyss had been completely ignited by the geocentric fiery eye. Anyone who tried to charge into the gates of the abyss would have to endure the terrifying heat of the geocentric fiery eye. A demon lord of heaven let out a miserable shriek. Even with the protection of the demon Tao Lord, this weakest demon was quickly engulfed by the geocentric fiery eye and burned to ashes. At the same time, the demon lord of heaven who had charged into the gates of the abyss was still being incinerated. Yi Fei, seeing this scene, the demon Tao Lord and Mo Lai were so angry that their eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Their hearts were filled with boundless killing intent. Chapter 23:16. The Ghost Race's trial when Du Chong and Mo Lai joined forces against Yi Fei. Wanting to use Yi Fei as a scapegoat, the Lord of Heaven present either watched coldly from the sidelines or gloated. Some even hoped that Yi Fei and the others would all die so that they would have fewer competitors. Now, they were all paying a painful price for this. Staying in the fiery eye meant death, but charging into the gates of the abyss might give them a chance at survival. Du Chong was furious, but in the end, he could only harden his heart and order the weakest Lord of Heaven to stand outside and endure the burning of the god fire. He and the other Lord of Heaven used this opportunity to break through the god fire and charge into the gates of the abyss. Even so, when they successfully reached the gates of the abyss, 10 of Du Chong's 17 Lord of Heaven were burned alive. Less than 7 managed to break through. Seeing this, Du Chong coughed out another mouthful of blood. Mo Lai's side was even worse. Several dozen lords of the Demonkin had been completely wiped out. 5 of the remaining 10-odd Lord of Heaven had been burned to death, and this was under the protection of a Demonkin Tao Lord. If it weren't for this Tao Lord, the Demonkin's losses would have been even worse. Of course, Feng Jie's faction suffered the most. After all, Feng Jie's faction was a temporary faction formed by a group of people. Their strength was mixed, and they weren't united. They naturally wouldn't sacrifice themselves to protect others. Thus, Feng Jie's faction had the most people. However, only 2 or 3 out of 10 actually made it to the gates of the abyss. The casualties exceeded 70%. Of the 100 Lord of Heaven, only 20 or so made it to the gates of the abyss. Feng Jie, Du Chong, and Mo Lai all had miserable expressions. The lucky survivors, Wang Xiu and Li Chong, were trembling. Not only did they not manage to kill Yi Fei, but they also suffered heavy casualties from Yi Fei's fire seed. They were already starting to fear Yi Fei in their hearts. Yi Fei, who had entered the gates of hell, didn't know that the fire seed he threw out would cause such great destruction. He had originally walked into the gates of hell with Bai Yin Ran, but when he entered, Bai Yin Ran and the Lord of Heaven behind her disappeared in the blink of an eye. Only the distant sky was filled with ghostly howls. At the same time, a pitch-black ghost city stood in the midst of the howls. The top of the ghost city was emitting a strange divine light. When Yi Fei saw the divine light, a message automatically appeared in his mind. Step in a ghost city, and you can obtain heavenly ghosts' inheritance. If you don't step in, you will be devoured by 10,000 ghosts. Woo 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 woo. Just as Yi Fei was astonished by this piece of information, the dark clouds above the ghost city that had always been shrouding it suddenly dispersed, forming numerous distorted and terrifying human faces. Meat, it's meat. Want to eat meat. Whoosh! The dark clouds turned into ghostly shadows that filled the sky. There were even more of them than outside, and they were even more sinister and terrifying. Moreover, these ghostly shadows could even use part of the heavenly ghost race's mystique. One of the ghostly shadows rushed towards Yi Fei, and a sharp voice came from its mouth. Meat, give us your meat. Blood, give us your blood. These voices overlapped with each other, forming a strange soul voice that shook a cultivator's soul. Yi Fei felt dizzy, and his eardrums were almost pierced by this soul voice. While he was distracted, a ghostly claw silently appeared behind him and dug at his body. Bam! When the ghostly claw touched his body, it was filled with an endless chill. Yi Fei almost shivered. This time, Xiao Qiao did not warn him. Fortunately, there was no one around. Without hesitation, Yi Fei used his golden body of laws. The blazing purple-gold light was like a burning flame that instantly dispelled the chill of the ghostly claw. It even shattered the ghostly shadow that had sneaked up on him. Then, Yi Fei took the time to look at the beast mark space. However, Xiao Qiao was nowhere to be seen. Instead, there was a small spiritual medicine quilt on the immortal crystal bed. At this moment, Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle were hiding inside, not daring to show their heads or open their eyes. Yi Fei was very depressed. How could I forget? Xiao Qiao is most afraid of ghosts. Unfortunately, there are ghostly shadows everywhere here. Seeing that Xiao Qiao had temporarily lost his ability to fight, Yi Fei could only raise his spirits. As he walked in the direction of the ghost city, he spread out his divine perception to search for the whereabouts of Bai Yanran and the other Lord of Heaven from Lord Pan's palace. However, after walking for 10 days, he still could not get close to the ghost city, nor did he discover the whereabouts of the others. Yi Fei's expression couldn't help but become somewhat serious. It seems that there should be many independent spaces within this gates of hell. Trying to find someone here is like finding a needle in a haystack. We can only rely on luck. Whoosh! Just as Yi Fei was deep in thought, a dozen ghostly claws silently appeared behind him and dug at his body at the same time. Meat, we want to eat meat. In his mind, there was a sharp, ear-piercing sound that sounded like metal rubbing against each other. Hearing this sound, Yi Fei angrily pulled out his black iron-heavy sword and slashed behind him. There was a series of explosions, and the ghostly claws behind him all disappeared. Yi Fei heaved a sigh of relief and was about to put away his black, iron-heavy sword. Suddenly, a ray of black light flew over from afar. It had the power of rotation and viciously pierced Yi Fei's body. Yi Fei fell to the ground on the spot. However, due to the golden body of despair, this ray of black light did not penetrate his body. Even so, Yi Fei broke out in cold sweat. As he fell to the ground, he let out a loud scream. He even bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood. It's over. I'm dead. Then, Yi Fei's legs gave way, and he died miserably. An ecstatic figure immediately rushed out from the shadows in the distance, afraid that Yi Fei was not completely dead. With a whoosh, another ray of terrifying black light shot towards Yi Fei's body. It was not enough to kill him. It actually wanted to torture his corpse. Yi Fei was completely enraged. He rolled on the ground and avoided the black light. At the same time, he finally saw the figure that had ambushed him. It was actually a demon lord of heaven. While Yi Fei was fighting with Gu Ying, he had secretly sneaked over with a spirit magic bow in his hand. It was this person who had taken advantage of Yi Fei's unpreparedness to activate the spirit magic runes on the bow to ambush Yi Fei. Unfortunately, Yi Fei's golden body of despair was too strong and blocked that fatal arrow. The demon lord of heaven cursed Yi Fei with a face full of shock. Shameless human, aren't you dead? That's right, I'm dead, but I could be resurrected. Yi Fei grinned and habitually revealed the unique smile of an honest person. Seeing this smile, the demon lord of heaven was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He roared and ignited his origin source again to activate the spirit magic runes. Chapter 23:17. Xiao Qiao fights Ghost Swoosh. A loud boom came from the void. The demon lord of heaven's third demon arrow turned into a black light again and locked onto Yi Fei. The demon lord of heaven was very confident that no matter how Yi Fei dodged, he would be hit by the demon arrow. However, Yi Fei's next move was completely out of the demon lord of heaven's expectation. He did not dodge the demon arrow. Instead, he pulled out his darksteel heavy sword and slashed forward. A strange, grayish-white sword light suddenly appeared between heaven and earth. It was the solitary sword. Yi Fei had awakened his rank 9 bloodline and obtained this natural superpower. Originally, even if a martial artist awakened their bloodline, they could only obtain one natural superpower. However, for some reason, Yi Fei could master two natural superpowers. If Yi Fei's most powerful god tribulation was included, he actually had three natural superpowers. However, in order to use the god's tribulation, he had to activate the star map seal in his bloodline. Yi Fei could not control it at the moment. Therefore, Yi Fei's natural superpowers were the Sword of Slaughter and the Solitary Sword. At this moment, the terrifying demonic arrow had already collided with the heavy sword with an astonishing pressure. Strangely, the two sides didn't collide at all. It was silent, like a blooming flower withering in an instant. Yi Fei's sword light, with a strong sense of desolation, actually dissolved the demonic arrow into nothingness. This is impossible. My demon arrow actually disappeared. The demon lord of heaven's smug smile suddenly turned into a strong sense of fear. He no longer hoped to kill Yi Fei. He just turned around and ran away as fast as he could. 1, 2, 3. Yi Fei spat out a number. Huge azure dragon wings had already appeared on his back. He rushed behind the demon lord of heaven in just 3 breaths of time. The powerful solitary sword suddenly turned into the deadly sword of slaughter. It was going to kill this person. Don't kill me. I know the whereabouts of the Lord of Heaven of the Lord Pan Palace. The demon Lord of Heaven shouted in fear. Speak. Where is the Lord of Heaven of the Lord Pan Palace? Yi Fei's expression changed. The Darksteel Heavy Sword Lord of Heaven was stopped. Right, demon Lord of Heaven. The demon Lord of Heaven was of darkness. The demon Lord of Heaven was of heavens of heaven, was of the demon of heaven, was of heaven. If Yi Fei was of heaven, was heaven, was God of heaven, of heaven, of heaven, of heaven. In order of Yin, demon God of heaven, was ice of God of heaven, was of heaven, was of heaven, was of heaven, was of heaven. Of heaven was of heaven of the of heaven, lead the way. Yi Fei put away the Darksteel Heavy Sword Lord of Heaven and took away the Demon Lord of Heaven's spatial belt and the demonic bow of spiritual possession. The Demon Lord of Heaven was fuming with rage. Helpless, he could only get up to survive. Not only did he get robbed, he even had to lead the way obediently. Along the way, Yi Fei kept his spiritual sense locked onto this demon. If this person showed any abnormalities, he could instantly kill him. To Yi Fei's surprise, this demon Lord of Heaven did not play any tricks. He just obediently led Yi Fei to a hill and said, "The Lord of Heaven of the Lord Pan Palace is over there. I even fought one of them before." Yi Fei extended his spiritual sense. Indeed, he discovered the remnant fluctuations of this divine ability around the hill. One of them was clearly the divine ability aura of the Lord Pan Palace's 1,000-peak revolution. "You come in with me." Yi Fei did not let his guard down. This demon Lord of Heaven was too cooperative, making him even more careful. "Young Master Yi, please come with me." Yi Fei vaguely felt that something was amiss, but he did not discover anything abnormal. He could only be extra careful and walk behind this person. However, he did not notice that the devil cultivator heavenly monarch who was walking in front of him suddenly had a cold and tyrannical expression on his face. Furthermore, the moment he stepped into the hill, a cold and tyrannical expression appeared on his face. Boom! This demon Lord of Heaven suddenly self-detonated, blowing up his body. Only a malevolent and venomous soul charged out, letting out a cold roar. "Yi-Mo, young Master Mo Lai has ordered me to kill you on sight. Today, you will taste the pain of 100 ghosts devouring your body." Woo, woo, woo. With the self-destruction of the heavenly monarch of the demon race, the hills suddenly turned into a cold ghost cave. In the cave, there were countless ghost shadows that were infuriated and rushed out crazily. "So that's how it is. You purposely lured me here so that these ghosts can kill me. However, this way, you will also die. Is it worth it?" Yi Fei understood. This was why this person was so cooperative along the way. "Of course it's worth it. After killing you, the young master will put me in an important position. By the way, let me tell you a secret. If you want to gain the recognition of the Heaven Ghoul race, The most important thing is to abandon your physical body and turn into a ghost body. If you have a physical body, you will become the target of countless ghost frenzied attacks. The demon Lord of Heaven's soul was filled with resentment. As he abandoned his physical body, he actually urged his soul to gradually turn into a ghost body. As expected, the ghosts that charged out didn't interfere with the transformation of the demon Lord of Heaven's soul. Instead, they shrieked madly as they surged toward Yi Fei. Only now did Yi Fei realize that the demon seemed to know a lot about the Heaven Ghoul race. If nothing unexpected happened, the demon race's Mo Lai would undoubtedly have a great advantage in passing the ghost race's test. Unfortunately, you shouldn't have self-detonated your physical body. If you had a physical body, you might have had a chance to escape. Without a physical body, you are doomed to die. Xiao Qiao, come out and fight. Yi Fei wasn't afraid in the face of danger. He even took the opportunity to grab Xiao Qiao, who was hiding. Yi! Xiao Qiao expressed that she was very angry. When she came out, she closed her eyes and suddenly threw out a 5-colored spiritual light, which randomly swept the area in front of her. However, Xiao Cao's sweep caused a big problem. Wherever the light passed, the crazy ghost shadows suddenly stopped in the air. The demon Lord of Heaven's eyes widened. Half of his soul had unfortunately been swept by Xiao Qiao's spiritual light. He immediately felt half of his soul go numb. He couldn't use any strength, let alone use a secret technique to turn into a ghost body. Yi Fei, on the other hand, was pleasantly surprised. He had originally only wanted Xiao Qiao to imprison this demon's soul to prevent him from escaping. Who would have thought that Xiao Cao's multicolored light would actually have such a strong restraining effect on these ghostly shadows? Kill! Without any time to think, Yi Fei suddenly drew his demonic bow and activated the divine inscriptions on it. The demonic bow released a terrifying purple-gold arrow light that shot forward. No! The divine soul of the demonic heavenly monarch let out a cry of extreme fear. He desperately tried to maneuver his divine soul to dodge, but half of his divine soul was still in a state of complete paralysis after being swept by the 5-colored spiritual light. Then, a terrifying purple-gold arrow completely penetrated his divine soul. Bang! The demon Lord of Heaven's soul exploded. Even in death, he hadn't expected that he would die to his own demonic bow. Chapter 23:18. Gui Jinshu Yi Fei looked at Xiao Qiao and saw that Xiao Qiao's eyes were still closed. He was waving his little hands in the air as if he was afraid that a ghost would come near. Yi Fei found it quite interesting and couldn't help but tease Xiao Qiao. Xiao Qiao, be careful. There's a ghost above your head. Boom! Just as he finished speaking, the 5-colored spirit light on Xiao Qiao's body had already turned into a hurricane that swept in all directions. The area above his head was especially targeted by the hurricane. Coincidentally, there really was a ghost that didn't know what was good for it and lurked above Xiao Qiao. In the end, this ghost died on the spot. Not only was the ghost shattered into pieces by the spirit light, but a divine pattern also appeared in the core of the ghost, and it quickly collapsed. The ghost that was said to be unkillable actually completely disappeared at this moment. Yi Fei was extremely moved. There are actually divine patterns hidden in the bodies of these ghosts. Is this the secret to their immortality? Xiao Qiao, continue attacking. Don't stop. Xiao Qiao covered his eyes and shook his head vigorously. He even bumped into Yi Fei as if he wanted to run back into the beastmark space. Yi Fei realized that he had gone overboard with his joke. He had an idea and coaxed Xiao Qiao. Xiao Qiao, don't be afraid. These aren't ghosts. They're special shadow monsters. If you don't believe me, take a look. There are divine patterns in their bodies. As he spoke, he reached out his hand and grabbed. A ghost that had been immobilized by the spirit light fell into his hand. Xiao Qiao nervously opened one of his eyes and shook the dragon turtle's tail with all his might. He wanted the dragon turtle to go over and check if this was a real ghost or a shadow monster. The dragon turtle's face darkened as it slapped the ghost with its claws. With a bang, the ghost was smashed into pieces. But right after that, the ghostly shadow transformed into a strange mist that rapidly merged back into Yifei's hand. Vaguely, the mist seemed to form some kind of mysterious divine runic symbol. Yifei might not be able to tell, but Xiao Qiao, who had the heavenly eyes of heaven and earth, could see it very clearly. He realized that it was indeed not a ghost, but a shadow monster. Xiao Qiao was no longer as afraid as before. He even grabbed the ghost shadow that had reformed, threw it to the ground, and stomped on it. With another bang, the ghostly figure shattered once again. This time, even the divine runes inside it were destroyed, and it completely vanished into thin air. Was it really a shadow monster? Xiao Qiao looked at the disappearing, ghostly figure in amazement. Then, he ran towards the other ghostly figures and stepped on them one by one. These ghostly figures were also disappearing like balloons. This scene caused the ghostly figures that were not swept by the spiritual light to scream in fear. One had to know that the reason ghostly figures were so crazy was because they could not be killed by cultivators. But this ferocious little girl in front of them had the ability to completely destroy them. Countless ghostly figures were terrified and trembling. When they saw Xiao Qiao, it was as if they had seen their natural enemy. They did not dare to attack Yifei anymore. Instead, they screamed and fled in all directions. As they fled, they also cried out in fear for their lives. "Help! We're killing ghosts! Woo 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 woo!" The screams of these ghostly figures formed a strange sound wave that spread in all directions. The ghostly figures in other directions also knew that a ferocious little girl had appeared in the heavenly ghost forbidden land. She killed all the ghosts she saw and was extremely terrifying. Squeak, squeak. Hearing these sounds, Xiao Qiao expressed his displeasure. The dragon turtle took the opportunity to rush towards the nearby ghost cave. It wanted to see if there were any treasures that it could eat. But soon, the dragon turtle ran out of the ghost cave with a face full of misfortune. It was carrying a corpse on its back. "It's the Lord of Heaven of Lord Pan's palace." Yifei recognized the identity of this person. He walked over with a serious expression and began to examine the cause of death. His ribs are broken, and there is demonic chi spreading from his chest. This person must have been ambushed by the demonic bow of the Lord of Heaven. After being severely injured, he was attacked by ghostly figures and fell into the ghost cave. What is this? Yifei also discovered that the Lord of Heaven was holding a jade pendant tightly in his hand before he died. He picked up the jade pendant and saw that there was a word written in blood on it: "Save." Could it be that Bai Yanran is in danger? Yifei suddenly felt uneasy. After all, these Lord of Heaven were ordered to come and protect Bai Yanran. Since this person had left such words in blood, there was only one possibility. Bai Yanran was in a bad situation. This won't do. I have to find Bai Yanran quickly. Yifei's expression was serious. If he wanted to gain the trust of Lord Pan's palace and obtain the golden body of despair of the divine Lord realm, he had to protect Bai Yanran well. And the jade pendant in that person's hand was the crux of the matter. This was a jade pendant with unique divine inscriptions. When Yifei tried to activate it, the divine inscriptions on it actually flickered, transforming into a beam of light that pointed in a certain direction. It's a guiding divine pattern. This Lord of Heaven of Lord Pan's palace is quite thoughtful. Brother, don't worry. I will help you complete your unfinished mission. Yifei swung his sword and cut a crack in the ground, burying this person. Then, he quickly rushed in the direction the divine pattern was pointing. Xiao Qiao, on the other hand, rode on the dragon turtle and led the way. She really hoped to kill a few more shadow monsters. Xiao Qiao realized that the sound of stepping on the shadow monsters actually sounded very comfortable. However, the shadow monsters also seemed to have a certain level of intelligence. At the same time, under the frightened warning of their companions, all the shadow monsters soon learned that a very fierce little girl had come to the forbidden land of the heavenly ghosts. She was accompanied by a fierce person and a fierce boar wearing a turtle shell. Next, wherever Yifei went, not only did no shadow monsters come to harass him, but the shadow monsters that were lucky enough to bump into him were so scared that they hid in all directions, as if they had seen a ghost. Xiao Chao was very unhappy that he couldn't continue fighting the shadow monsters. The dragon turtle was even more unhappy that he, a 7th-grade demon dragon, was being treated like a pig. Only Yifei felt that it was a good thing to be able to push his way through. At least without the shadow monsters blocking him, he could find Bai Yanran faster, as well as the other Lord of Heaven of Lord Pan's palace. At the same time, in another part of the forbidden land of the heavenly ghosts, Bai Yanran was panting, anger and worry flashing in her eyes. After entering the forbidden land of the heavenly ghosts, she was randomly scattered. However, with the divine pattern unique to the Lord Pan's palace, she quickly gathered the Lord of Heaven of Lord Pan's palace. However, she didn't expect that one of the Lord of Heaven would be accidentally discovered by the demons. The demons that entered the forbidden land of the heavenly ghosts were divided into 2 groups. One group was led by the demon Tao Lord to protect Mo Lai, while the other group was led by the other Lord of Heaven to protect Wang Xiao. Moreover, the demons had a special telepathy that allowed them to sense each other's location. The speed of gathering was even faster than that of the Lord Pan's palace. Ever since Wang Xiao's egg was broken, he had developed a certain extreme in his heart, and that was that he must get Bai Yanran. At this time, he accidentally discovered the whereabouts of the Lord of Heaven of Lord Pan's palace. Without thinking, Wang Xiao led the demon Lord of Heaven and chased after him. Moreover, one of the demon Lord of Heaven turned into a ghost after entering the forbidden land of the heavenly ghosts because his physical body was destroyed by the divine fire. He could even drive the shadow monsters to attack Bai Yanran and the others. Chapter 23:19. Slaying Wang Xiao. Although the rest of the Lords of Heaven tried their best to protect Bai Yanran and break out of the encirclement, they were all injured. Fortunately, Bai Yanran's personal combat capability was very outstanding, so she was barely able to avoid being caught. Wang Xiao was also very patient. He was not in a hurry to catch Bai Yanran. Instead, he enjoyed the process of chasing. Bai Yanran, just keep running. When you run out of energy, this young master will come and make you feel good again. How can one time be enough? Young Master Wang, there are so many of us helping you kill your enemy. Such a great beauty is right in front of us. Even if you eat the meat, you have to let us drink the soup. The other demon, Lord of Heaven, laughed heartily. All kinds of filthy words made Bai Yanran tremble, but Wang Xiao was not tired of it. Hee, since everyone has the same intention, then let's play together. Wang Xiao once again let out a sharp voice. That voice made the demon Lord of Heaven shudder. Bai Yanran was so angry that her face turned red. She was a woman after all. How could she tolerate such humiliation from Wang Xiao? The Lord of Heaven beside her hurriedly pulled her back. Miss Yanran, they're trying to provoke you. Just treat it as a dog barking. At present, we should find young Master Yi as soon as possible. Only young Master Yi can protect you. Yi Fei, protect her? Humph! If that Yi Mo appears, this young master will definitely make him die a horrible death. Wang Xiao's face twisted. The hatred of his broken eggs was irreconcilable. Wang Xiao's spirit became completely crazy and twisted. He screamed, "Go, kill them all. This young master wants to capture that woman now." Haha, young Master Wang, don't worry. This is the forbidden land of heavenly ghosts. Even if we don't attack, there are still plenty of ghosts who can be our free fighters. Whoa. The ghostly demon, Lord of Heaven, suddenly let out a sharp ghost howl. He had already discovered that a hill had appeared in the direction Bai Yanran, and the others were escaping. It was not a real hill, but an illusion formed by the ghost cave. He made a prompt decision to let out a special ghost sound. This sound immediately stimulated the ghosts in the ghost cave and made them go crazy. All of a sudden, dense ghost claws stretched out around Bai Yanran, trying to grab her and tear her apart. Bai Yanran's face suddenly turned pale. No matter how powerful she was, it was impossible for her to defeat hundreds of ghost shadows. Moreover, these ghost shadows could not be killed at all. Miss Yanran, hurry up and leave. We'll cover you. Suddenly, two of the Lord of Heaven of Lord Pan's palace let out sorrowful cries. They had been injured and bleeding when they broke out of the encirclement and became the ghost's favorite targets. Instead of being devoured by the ghosts and dying, these two Lord of Heaven bravely charged forward and self-detonated in midair. Boom! The Lord of Heaven's self-detonation turned the entire ghost cave into ruins. A path of blood was carved out. Bai Yinran's tears flowed like a fountain. She cried out sorrowfully, "Uncle Zhang, Uncle Niu!" The other three Lord of Heaven also looked sorrowful and indignant as they charged back to stop Wang Xiu and the others. Now is not the time to be sad. Our deaths are not to be regretted. Miss Yinran, nothing must happen to you. Wang Xiu was instantly enraged. He personally attacked and beheaded one of the Lord of Heaven of Lord Pan's palace. He then crushed the head with a stomp. The other heavenly monarchs of the devil dwellers grinned hideously and began to encircle and intercept Bai Yinran. They were very experienced and did not disturb those ghost shadows. Instead, they attacked from a distance and released various divine skills. These divine skills were not enough to kill Bai Yinran, but they could slow her down. One of the supernatural powers hit Bai Yinran's body. When she spat out a mouthful of blood, her clothes were torn, revealing her snow-white skin. Wang Xiu and the demon Lord of Heaven's eyes brightened. They did not hide their evil intentions at all. Bai Yinran's face was full of despair. In the face of hundreds of ghost shadows, as well as Wang Xiu and the others, she had already given up on escaping. Now, there was only one thought in her mind, and that was to kill the shameless Wang Xiu before she died. Boom! Bai Yinran's body burned with bloody flames. She was ready to fight with her life. Even if she had to die together with Wang Xiu, it was better than being humiliated. Fight with your life. You won't have a chance. Wang Xiu slyly retreated with the heavenly monarch devil cultivator. The ghostly heavenly monarch devil cultivator let out an even sharper ghostly howl. This was the offensive ghostly howl he had learned in the heavenly ghost forbidden zone. As long as he let out this howl, all the ghostly shadows nearby would launch the craziest attacks on the target. But this time, the ghostly Lord of Heaven had obviously miscalculated. Hearing his ghost howl, the ghosts did not rush to attack. Instead, they all screamed in fear. "Oh no, the ghost killer is coming. Woo-woo." The group of crazy ghosts scattered in fear as if they had seen a real ghost. They hated that they did not have more legs. The ghostly Lord of Heaven was stunned on the spot. Wang Xiu and the others were also dumbfounded. The ghost killer? Is there a monster more terrifying than ghosts in the forbidden land of heavenly ghosts? Then, they subconsciously looked behind Bai Yinran, only to see a figure with flaming dragon wings suddenly rushing towards her at a high speed. Yi Fei! Bai Yinran could not believe her eyes. Just as she was about to die with the enemy in despair, Yi Fei descended from the sky like a demon god, scaring away a large group of ghosts. Yi Fei! Wang Xiu's face was ferocious. His eyes were red, and he instantly lost his mind. He just rushed madly toward Yi Fei. The other devil cultivator heavenly monarchs also roared. "Young master has ordered that anyone who sees Yi Fei will be killed. Hurry up and die. All of you deserve to die." Yi Fei held his sword in one hand and flapped his dragon wings. He rushed to Bai Yinran's side in an instant. However, when he saw Bai Yinran's bloody flames and her clothes were disheveled, a surge of murderous intent surged. Without any hesitation, Yi Fei slashed out with his heavy sword. At the same time, a dazzling purple-gold light erupted from his body. He activated his golden body of laws to block the attacks of the other demon Lord of Heaven. At the same time, Yi Fei's heavy sword carried the light of death and desolation as he performed his strongest sword move, the Desolate Killing Sword. There were 2 consecutive sword lights. One of them destroyed Wang Xiu's superpower, while the other suddenly turned into a ray of light and pierced toward Wang Xiu's forehead. "Yi Fei, I'll fight you to the death." Wang Xiu's face was filled with fear. He never expected Yi Fei's sword to be able to neutralize his superpower. Caught off guard, Wang Xiao could only explode with all his strength in an attempt to block the light of the killing sword. A mocking sneer appeared on Yi Fei's face. The light of the killing sword suddenly became as dazzling as the stars. An endless aura of death turned into a sea of blood. Within the sea of blood, Wang Xiao only felt a beam of deathly sword light avoid his body and directly penetrate his celestial palace, his fate wheel, and his spirit that had escaped to the sky bridge. With just one sword, Wang Xiao was dead. However, his corpse was intact. It still maintained a complicated expression of fear, shock, and resentment. Dong! Wang Xiao's corpse fell to the ground. Chapter 23:20. Fighting Du Chong again, the golden body of laws suddenly emitted a dazzling purple-gold light and blocked the attacks of the Lord of Heaven. While killing Wang Xiao, Yi Fei suddenly turned around and swung his heavy black iron sword at the Lord of Heaven, enveloping all the demons. Bam! A flower of blood burst out of the sea of blood. The heavy sword whizzed past and cut a demon Lord of Heaven into a bloody mist. Another scream was heard. The heavy sword did not stop, and the sword light of death shattered another demon's celestial palace. At this moment, Bai Yanran's expression was resolute. She charged towards the heavenly monarchs of the devil dwellers from a distance. It was these people who had killed the heavenly monarchs of the Lord Pan Palace and almost forced her to die together with them. Now that there was a chance for revenge, Bai Yanran would not show any mercy. All of a sudden, numerous mountain peaks formed by dark force flew out of the endless blood sea. The heavenly lords of the demon race had joined hands to hunt down Bai Yanran at first, but now they had a taste of the fire fox's anger. Those mountains crashed into the sea of blood like meteors, killing and injuring several demon Lord of Heaven on the spot. Kill! Yi Fei took advantage of this opportunity to perform the Sword of Slaughter. The dazzling sword light made the sea of blood boil and terrified the demons. Bloody mist exploded in the air. In just a dozen breaths, with the cooperation of Yi Fei and Bai Yanran, the number of Demon Lord of Heaven had been reduced by 90%. In the end, only 3 heavenly monarchs of demon dwellers, who were relatively strong, managed to tear apart the blood sea and resist Bai Yanran's revolving peak of 1,000 peaks. They fled in horror. Yimo, we will remember what you did to us today. Young master will kill you. Mo Lai, even if he doesn't come looking for me, I will go look for him. Yi Fei didn't give chase. He put away his black iron heavy sword and took out his pitch-black magic bow. When he activated the divine patterns, he had already shot out 3 arrows in a row. Whoosh! 3 purple-golden arrows with the sharpness of death instantly pierced through the bodies of the 3 demon Lord of Heaven, killing them. At this point, the demons of the Lord of Heaven were completely destroyed. Bai Yanran was stunned for a moment before he reacted. He walked over and thanked Yi Fei. Yi Fei, thank you so much for this time. If it weren't for you... Speaking of this, Bai Yanran's expression dimmed when she saw the Lord of Heaven of Lord Pan's palace who died in battle to protect her. If we don't want them to die in vain, the only thing we can do is to use all our strength to seize the inheritance of the heavenly ghoul race. Yi Fei didn't know how to console her. He could only encourage her in this way. Bai Yanran was stunned for a moment when he heard this, but he quickly pulled himself together and said, "You are right. They can't die in vain. Even if I have to destroy the inheritance of the heavenly ghoul race, I won't let it fall into the hands of Du Chong and Mo Lai. If it weren't for Du Chong and Mo Lai's coercion, these Lord of Heaven of Lord Pan's palace wouldn't have died in battle." Bai Yanran was truly angry this time. Seeing Bai Yanran regain his fighting spirit, Yi Fei nodded inwardly. "Since you have such intentions, I will naturally help you. Hold my hand. I will take you to that ghost city now." Boom! Yi Fei spread his huge dragon wings and flew straight in the direction of the ghost city, ignoring all the ghost caves and wandering ghosts along the way. These ghosts didn't dare attack Yi Fei at all. Instead, they were often scared away by Yi Fei. After all, the ghost madness was built on the premise that they wouldn't die. when they realized that Xiao Chao's spiritual light could completely destroy their immortal god sigils. These ghosts were no longer a threat to Yi Fei. These ghosts could block the footsteps of others, but they couldn't stop Yi Fei. Bai Yanran was extremely shocked by this. He muttered to himself, "This guy is really getting more and more mysterious. Oh no, there seems to be someone up ahead." Just as the two of them approached the ghost city, Bai Yanran discovered a few corpses in the open space ahead. These corpses belonged to the Lord of Heaven of the Divine King's Palace. Du Chong is up ahead? Bai Yanran cast a questioning look at Yi Fei. It seems that the demons aren't the only smart ones. Du Chong seems to have found a way to deal with the ghosts as well. Yi Fei's expression was grave. Around these broken corpses, he could sense many broken ghosts and scattered Yin energy. However, Yi Fei didn't stop and continued forward. From afar, he could already sense the sinister aura of the ghost city. Outside the sinister aura, a figure was sitting cross-legged. This figure was none other than Du Chong. In front of Du Chong, Li Chong and the other two Lord of Heaven were crazily attacking the gate of the ghost city. Bai Yanran's eyes were bright as he stared at the gate. That gate is made of countless god sigils. Breaking it by force will only backfire. If you were given time, how long would it take for you to break it? Yi Fei asked in a low voice. About 2 hours. Bai Yanran used her soul consciousness to carefully observe the spirit adhesion city gate. Yi Fei nodded. He walked forward confidently and said, "In that case, I'll buy you 2 hours." Just as well. It was time to settle the grudge between him and Du Chong. Sensing Yi Fei's approach, Li Chong and the other two Lord of Heaven hesitated and stopped their attacks. They looked at Du Chong again. "Continue. He's just a small fry. He's not worthy to fight with me for this ghost city." Du Chong opened his eyes. The moment he stood up, he charged at Yi Fei like lightning. "You've got guts. You actually tricked me 3 times in a row. Do you know the consequences of angering me?" Boom. Without giving Yi Fei any chance to dodge, when Du Chong charged over, a divine flame appeared in his hand. A flaming divine saber had already appeared. It was like a sea of fire that enveloped the entire area. Kill. A layer of deathly sword light suddenly appeared on Yi Fei's body. He slashed forward. Instantly, a sense of withering appeared in the area. Even the sea of fire was withering. This was the terror of the Sword of Withering. Its attack might not be strong, but it could neutralize the opponent's mystique. It was impossible to guard against. Godly King Chaos. Du Chong's face turned solemn. The flaming divine blade had suddenly turned into a flaming divine rain. The rain was scorching hot, causing the entire void to be filled with a scorching aura, as though it was about to ignite the entire space. Kill. Yi Fei roared again. The sense of withering on his body intensified. Boundless sword light gathered. Under Yi Fei's will, it suddenly evolved into a perfect Taiji sword diagram. The moment it blocked the rain of fire, Yi Fei's dragon wings flapped. Like a dragon soaring to the 9 heavens, he suddenly wielded his sword and slashed at Du Chong. How can this be? Du Chong is actually being suppressed by Yi Fei. The strongest Lord of Heaven can't stop a nameless person? Outside the ghost city, Li Chong and the other two Lord of Heaven watched the terrifying battle in the sky in horror. Whether it was Du Chong or Yi Fei, their attack power had already surpassed the level of the Lord of Heaven. Although the two of them were Lord of Heaven, their true combat strength was no weaker than an ordinary Tao Lord. Chapter 23-21. That was all there was to it. Originally, he thought that Yi Fei was just an insignificant character. It was only now that he realized that Yi Fei was just like Du Chong. They were both ferocious dragons that could soar to the 9 heavens. Li Chong and the other two who were shocked by the great battle didn't notice in the slightest that there was a figure as nimble as a fox quietly approaching them. "Yi Fei, I want you dead." Seeing that the Divine King could not suppress Yi Fei, Du Chong was completely enraged. A terrifying will appeared on his body. It was the will of the wolf god. The flaming divine saber in his hand was affected by the will and became even more terrifying. Boom! Du Chong swung his saber forward. The sky was filled with a sea of fire that instantly engulfed Yi Fei. Then, it burned the space that Yi Fei was in until it crackled. Finally, it collapsed. But in the collapsed space, there was a figure burning with purplish gold light. He strode forward with a heavy sword and slashed forward. The sea of fire in the sky suddenly turned into a sea of blood. Yi Fei's fighting spirit was like blood as he fought in all directions. He formed a terrifying sword light of death that cut through the sea of fire and clashed fiercely with a flaming divine saber. The entire void resounded with the sound of the collision between the saber and the sword. Then, the sea of fire exploded and the sea of blood filled the sky. Yi Fei held the dark steel heavy sword and swung it crazily. The whistling dark force ignited all the divine patterns on the heavy sword, and he slashed forward with a divine lord attack. Du Chong roared again. He was not afraid in the face of danger. A dark steel heavy shield appeared in his hands. The same divine patterns flickered on it as he blocked Yi Fei's divine lord attack. I am the strongest person in the Lord of Heaven of the Divine King Palace. Other than me, no one else has the right to possess the treasures of the Heaven Ghoul tribe. How dare a small fry like you compete with me? Roar. As he blocked the sword light, Du Chong let out a terrifying howl. A huge wolf god phantom appeared behind him and quickly merged into his body. Du Chong's body became the Wolf King's body. This was his strongest natural mystique. It could increase his ability, speed, strength, defense, and even mystiques in all aspects. Another flaming divine blade hacked over murderously, tearing apart heaven and earth, forming another terrifying blade aura, carrying out a chaotic dance. Dong! Yi Fei gripped the heavy sword tightly with both hands, and an aura of desolation and death appeared on his body at the same time. The heavy sword did not have a sharp edge, but it had astonishing power, enough to shatter the void and cut off the enemy's head. Their swords and sabers collided again, separated, and collided again. Bursts of saber light and sword light continuously appeared in the void and clashed with each other. Suddenly, Du Chong's wolf-like wings flapped, and he transformed into countless afterimages. It was almost as if there were countless Du Chongs brandishing flaming divine sabers. Fight! Yi Fei's heavy sword turned around, and the sword of slaughter once again turned into the sword of desolation. Boundless desolation spread out in all directions, as if it wanted to bring the void to an end. Yi Fei, you've been tricked. Suddenly, the afterimages that filled the sky overlapped, but they did not appear in front of Yi Fei. Instead, they appeared abruptly at Yi Fei's flank. The flaming divine sabers that filled the sky slashed down furiously with the power to cut apart heaven and earth, trying to cut Yi Fei in half. Get out of my way! At this critical moment, Yi Fei did not care about the flaming divine sabers that were about to hit him. His sword of slaughter turned from desolation to death. The sword of slaughter appeared again, but it missed the flaming divine sabers and slashed towards Du Chong's body. If their attacks hit, they would be cut in half. Yi Fei was gambling with his life. You're crazy. Du Chong scolded angrily, and a vicious look flashed across his eyes. As the strongest person in the Lord of Heaven of the Palace of the Deity, he lived up to his reputation. If Yi Fei wanted to risk his life, he would accompany him to the end. Bam! The flaming divine sabers were even faster. They were like a bolt of lightning as they slashed furiously at Yi Fei. However, at this moment, a purplish gold light that resembled stars suddenly bloomed from Yi Fei's body. Not only did it block Du Chong's divine sabers, but the heavy sword also whistled through the air. With one slash, it cut off the wolf wings on Du Chong's back. The intense pain made Du Chong howl like a wolf. In this battle of defense, Yi Fei's golden body of despair was undoubtedly superior. Du Chong, who had lost his wolf wings, was at an absolute disadvantage in terms of speed and defense. Yi Fei naturally would not waste this opportunity. The light from the black iron-heavy sword in his hand burned even brighter. This time, he used both the sword of slaughter and the sword of desolation at the same time. The two different sword lights merged perfectly with Yi Fei's understanding of Taiji, forming a brand new natural mystique that slashed forward. Yi Fei, Du Chong, will fight it out with you today. Du Chong roared sullenly. In terms of speed, he was no match for Yi Fei. In terms of defense, he was no match for Yi Fei. In fact, in terms of mystique, he was no match for Yi Fei. This was his greatest humiliation as the strongest person in the Lord of Heaven. If he wanted to wash away this humiliation, he had to kill Yi Fei. At this thought, Du Chong made up his mind. He took out a strange elixir and swallowed it. At this moment, he completely ignited his own bloodline. Boom! A layer of special bloodline divine flame appeared on Du Chong's body. However, it was no longer a grade 7 bloodline, but a grade 8 bloodline. That strange elixir had actually allowed Du Chong's bloodline to break through the limits in a short period of time. Of course, this came at a huge price. Du Chong's eyes, ears, mouth, and nose were all bleeding at the same time. His body was also swollen and started to crack because of this burning bloodline. However, all of this was worth it. When he ignited his grade 8 divine flame, Du Chong's aura finally reached its peak. A sea of fire appeared in the void again. At this moment, Du Chong was like the godly king of flames. He waved his sharp blade and wanted to kill his enemy completely. Du Chong, is this your strongest move? The strongest person in the Lord of Heaven? That's all there is to it. Yi Fei was not afraid. At this moment, a towering divine flame appeared on his body. Moreover, this divine flame was even stronger and more intense than Du Chong's. After all, Yi Fei currently possessed a grade 9 bloodline. When the power of this bloodline was integrated into the mystique, the entire area outside Ghost City seemed to have turned into a vast sea of blood. Not only did it devour Du Chong's flames, but it also shattered Du Chong's divine flame saber with a slash. Puff! A mouthful of blood spurted out from Du Chong's mouth. At the same time, the profound iron divine shield that he originally held in his hand had a deep crack on it from Yi Fei's sword light. If it wasn't for the spirit adhesion divine shield, that sword would have taken his life. You get lost. Without waiting for Du Chong to speak, Yi Fei suddenly flapped his dragon wings and appeared in front of Du Chong in an instant. Both of his feet directly stomped on the spiritual divine shield. Du Chong couldn't hold onto the divine shield anymore. Blood spurted out from his body, and he was heavily smashed onto the ground like a kite with a broken string. Moreover, the place where he landed was coincidentally next to someone's feet. This person was none other than the third young lord of the demon dwellers, Mo Lai. Chapter 23-22. No entry for strangers. Boom. The demonic flames on Mo Lai's body glowed like light, forming a distorted demonic field. This field pulled Yi Fei's body closer and closer to him. This was Mo Lai's mystique will, the enchantment will. Under this will, everything could be attracted to Mo Lai and would inevitably fall into the demonic field. On the other side, the demonic Lord Dao, Lord, also laughed sinisterly. Demonic people did not have the rule of fighting one-on-one. They had always been unscrupulous in order to win. Du Chong, who had fallen to the ground, also had a venomous look on his face. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and howled like a wolf. He was about to charge forward again to fight Yi Fei. Yi Fei, come over here. Suddenly, Bai Yanran's weak voice came from afar. Just as Yi Fei and Du Chong were fighting, Bai Yanran had taken advantage of Li Chong and the others' unpreparedness to severely injure the three Lord of Heaven. At the same time, she had used her spiritual attachment talent to forcefully open a gap at the gates of Ghost City. However, this gap was very unstable and consumed all of Bai Yanran's strength. At this moment, Li Chong and the others, who had come to their senses, roared angrily and continuously released their mystiques at Bai Yanran. However, Bai Yinran did not dodge. When she saw Du Chong, Mo Lai, and the demonic Lord Dao, Lord closing in on Yi Fei, she had decided that even if it meant getting injured, she would create an opportunity for Yi Fei to enter Ghost City. Under Yi Fei's gaze, Bai Yinran used her body to continuously withstand the attacks of the three Lord of Heaven. 3 mouthfuls of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth, drenching her clothes. Seeing this scene, Yi Fei's heart was filled with immense anger. He flapped his dragon wings and rushed from afar to Ghost City, arriving at Bai Yinran's side. Kill! The killing sword, which was filled with the aura of death, slashed at the nearest Old Lord of Heaven. With just one slash, the Old Lord of Heaven was beheaded. The remaining 2 Lord of Heaven, Li Chong and Li Chong, were so frightened that they did not dare to attack Bai Yinran again. Instead, they retreated in fear. Bai Yinran, why are you doing this? Yi Fei did not continue to pursue them. Instead, he grabbed Bai Yinran's arm and charged towards the unstable gap. Yi Fei, and Yi Fei would naturally not waste this opportunity. This scene made Du Chong, Mo Lai, and the Demon Dao Lord roar in anger. Unfortunately, Mo Lai and the Demon Dao Lord couldn't keep up with Yi Fei's speed. The only one who could catch up to Yi Fei, Du Chong, could only roar angrily and try to rush into Ghost City before the crack disappeared. Scram! Yi Fei's angry roar came from within the gap. Immediately, a terrifying purple-gold arrow shot out, whistling towards Du Chong and the other 2. Du Chong howled like a wolf. He had completely lost his chance to charge into the gap. Mo Lai's eyes were filled with murderous intent. That's the black demon bow I lent to Wang Xiao. Wang Xiao, that useless person, actually allowed it to fall into Yi Fei's hands. Mo Lai's murderous intent was revealed. His heart was filled with rage. Unfortunately, none of them knew the divine spiritual attachment rune. They could only watch the gap disappear with ugly expressions. The first thing Yi Fei did after entering Ghost City was to say sternly, "Bai Yinran, you know how dangerous it was just now. If I had not returned in time, you might not have just spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. I believe that you will return in time. Besides, I still have a trump card that I haven't used yet," Bai Yinran said, glaring. Yi Fei naturally knew that Bai Yinran's trump card was probably the golden body of despair. However, if she had used it, the fact that Lord Pan Hall was a branch of the Heavenly Palace of Despair would have been completely exposed. In any case, you should be more careful in the future. I can't save you every time, Yi Fei said sternly. Bai Yinran had taken too much of a risk just now. Yi Fei, didn't I save you just now? Bai Yinran glared at Yi Fei again. I almost died in order to save you. Tell me, how are you going to repay me? Don't tell me you want me to repay you with my body? Yi Fei did not back down and started to fight back. Bai Yinran's face turned red when she heard this. However, when she saw Yi Fei's half-smile, she glared again and said, "Fine, I'll marry you as long as you dare to marry me." Yi Fei's face darkened. He was speechless. He had wanted to tease Bai Yinran to ease the atmosphere, but in the end, he was teased instead. He could only turn his head and start to size up the Ghost City. The Ghost City was very large. It should have been an important city of the Heavenly Ghoul tribe. However, with the destruction of the Heavenly Ghoul tribe, this Ghost City had been completely abandoned. Bai Yinran frowned and said, "This Ghost City is so big. Where can we find the treasures of the Heavenly Ghoul tribe?" Yi Fei did not say anything. He only sent his consciousness into the beast-marked space and looked at Xiao Chao. Without the reminder, Xiao Chao had already opened his heavenly eyes of heaven and earth excitedly and scanned the surroundings. Suddenly, Xiao Chao discovered something and pointed in a certain direction, indicating that the celestial chi fluctuation there was the strongest. "I found the treasures of the Heavenly Ghoul tribe." Yi Fei did not explain. He grabbed Bai Yinran as fast as he could and rushed toward the place Xiao Chao had discovered. The Ghost City's gates alone would not be able to hold off Du Chong and Mo Lai for too long. Yi Fei could only hurry and mention the treasures of the Heavenly Ghoul tribe before outsiders came in. Even so, Yi Fei flew for an hour before he gradually approached the place where Xiao Qiao sensed the celestial qi gathering. He saw that it was an ancient altar. On the altar, there was a huge statue of the heavenly ghoul royal tribe. In the statue's hand was an ancient scroll that emitted a dense black aura. That scroll should be the inheritance of the heavenly ghoul tribe. Bai Yanran looked at the scroll excitedly. But Yi Fei noticed that there were 9 blood coffins neatly placed at the foot of the heavenly ghoul royal tribe statue. The appearance of those blood coffins was so familiar. It's the blood coffins of the heavenly river royal tribe. Could the blood refining technique of the heavenly river royal tribe be related to the heavenly ghoul tribe? Yi Fei was shocked, but he did not stop walking. After all, he had taken a risk to enter the ghost city to fight for the inheritance. Even if he could not fight for it, he wanted to destroy it and not leave it for Du Chong and Mo Lai. As Yi Fei and Bai Yanran approached, the 9 blood coffins under the statue suddenly opened. Do not enter the land of the heavenly ghoul tribe. As expected, there were 9 ghostly corpses lying inside. Fortunately, only one of these ghostly corpses was at the Tao Lord Realm. The others were still at the Lord Realm. Chapter 23:23. Sword Spirit Unleashed, Lowly Humans. Senior, if I'm not mistaken, you were all humans when you were alive, so you turned into ghost corpses, right? If you say that we are lowly, then aren't you, who are neither human nor ghost, even more lowly? Yi Fei stood in front of Bai Yanran coldly. Due to his experience with the imperial family of the Sky River, Yi Fei already had a bad impression of these ghost corpses. Yi Fei's words had undoubtedly touched the bottom line of these ghost corpses. One of the ghost corpses of the Lord of Heaven roared angrily. What do you know, lowly thing? Only the dead and ghosts are allowed to enter this ghost city. No living person has ever dared to take a step into this ghost city. What's the point of saying so much to him? He's just a piece of trash in the middle stage of the Lord of Heaven. Let's kill him and let him replace us to guard this damned ghost city. Obviously, these ghost corpses did not intend to stay here. Moreover, they seem to be able to escape from this ghost city by killing the living. On top of that, the 9 ghost corpses lost interest in talking to Yi Fei. They roared angrily as they rushed forward to kill him. The most terrifying of them all was the Tao corpse. The Tao corpses refined by the imperial family of the Sky River were merely killing puppets. Tao Lord Ghostly Corpse, on the other hand, was not a simple puppet. He had his own thoughts and abilities. Boundless, ghostly shadows. Thick black fog appeared in the void, swallowing all energy and light. It was as if one was in complete darkness. At the same time, countless ghost faces appeared in the darkness, laughing eerily. Sometimes they were far away. Sometimes they were right next to Yi Fei's ears. In the beastmark space, Xiao Qiao was so scared that he quickly hid again. Bai Yanran, the heroine, also felt a little numb. She quickly grabbed Yi Fei's arm to feel safe. Yi Fei felt helpless. It's just a bunch of ghost corpses. Is there a need to be so scared? Then he felt a sharp pain in his arm. Yi Fei could only shut his mouth gloomily. At the same time, the black iron heavy sword once again emitted a strong sword light. Instantly, a strong sense of loneliness appeared between heaven and earth. It actually dispersed the black fog, revealing the sky of Ghost City once again. What sword is that? Kill him. The solitary sword caused these ghost corpses to feel uneasy. Within the black fog, layers of ghost claws viciously grabbed at Yi Fei's body like flickering shadows. Leave the Lord of Heaven to me. I'll leave the Tao corpse to you. Bai Yanran let go of Yi Fei. Her fists suddenly flashed with golden light, and purple divine light appeared in her eyes. Since there were no outsiders present, she finally unleashed her golden body of despair. The solitary sword light in Yi Fei's hand became even fiercer. It was like a bolt of lightning, shattering the darkness and shattering the dawn. At the peak of Ghost City, the ferocious roar of Tao Lord Ghost Corpse was heard. Countless chilly winds appeared between heaven and earth. Ghostly Underworld Million Saber. This was a martial technique unique to the Heavenly Ghoul tribe. It was executed perfectly by this ghost corpse. Then it slashed at the void. Suddenly, the entire ghost city seemed to have turned into a land of the netherworld. There were thousands of sabers that wanted to cut Yi Fei into 1,000 pieces. Seeing this, Yi Fei's expression turned grave. This ghost corpse is different from the Dao corpses of the Heavenly River Imperial family. Dao corpses are just puppets. Ghost corpses are already ghouls with intelligence. Moreover, Bai Yanran can't last long against 9 ghost corpses at once. He had to end the battle quickly. It would be best if he could kill them in one blow. Yi Fei immediately thought of the Undying Sword Soul. This was the way to deal with the Rinzhu army of the ghost corpses. Kill Undying Sword Soul, Undying Sword of Slaughter. The black iron heavy sword disappeared from Yi Fei's hand. At the same time, a black gold divine sword appeared in his hand. Sensing the ghost corpse's aura, the Undying Sword token vibrated with excitement. Then, the divine sword light, as bright as the sun and moon, appeared. It carried the destructive aura of the Undying Sword Soul and the deathly aura of the Sword of Slaughter. In an instant, it shattered the Million Saber and slashed at Dao Lord Ghost Corpses. Dao Lord Ghost Corpses' expression changed drastically. As soon as the Undying Sword Soul appeared, Dao Lord Ghost Corpse instinctively sensed the aura of death. His Ghost Corpse body immediately turned illusory and dodged the divine sword light of the life-killing sword by a hair's breadth. Human, your sword is nothing special. That's because you think too much. Yi Fei snorted coldly as a pair of earth-fire dragon wings suddenly appeared on his back. The light of the divine sword in his hand had already drawn a beautiful arc in the void, and the end of the arc just happened to be aimed at Dao Monarch Ghost Corpse. Get out of my way. Dao Lord Ghost Corpses let out a furious and fearful roar. His ghostly claws were indestructible, and he wanted to tear Yi Fei's body apart. However, he was facing Yi Fei's golden body of laws. This was the strongest defensive divine ability of the Heavenly Palace of Despair. At the Lord of Heaven level, it could block the attacks of Dao Lords. Dao Lord Ghost Corpse's ghostly claws could not break Yi Fei's golden body. Instead, Yi Fei's Undying Sword Soul emitted an intense divine light and pierced the Ghost Corpse's forehead. Dao Lord Ghost Corpse's eyes widened in shock. Dao Lord Ghost Corpses waved his ghostly claws in despair and clawed forward. However, before his hand could reach Yi Fei, the Undying Sword Soul had already absorbed all of the Ghost Corpse's Dao Lord origin. Dao Lord Ghost Corpse's corpse fell to the ground unwillingly. On the other side, Bai Yanran was in danger. He was completely surrounded by the other ghost corpses of the Lord of Heaven. After all, it was 1 against 8, and they were all the strongest ghost corpses of the perfected Lord of Heaven. Even though Bai Yanran had the golden body of despair, he was gradually at a disadvantage. At this moment, a figure covered in the light of a divine sword appeared in front of the ghost corpses of the Lord of Heaven. The Undying Sword Soul slashed out again. Before a ghost corpse of the Lord of Heaven could understand what was going on, his Lord of Heaven's origin was completely sucked out. Only a shriveled corpse was left, and it fell from the sky. Dao Lord Ghost Corpses is dead. That person, the sword in his hand, can steal our origin. The remaining ghost corpses of the Lord of Heaven were shocked and terrified. One of the ghost corpses suddenly stopped fighting and said, "Sir, you have passed our test. You are qualified to have the inheritance of the Heavenly Ghoul clan. I am qualified, but you're not qualified to test me. You're not qualified to say that we humans are lowly." Yi Fei did not stop and continued to stride forward. He did not show any mercy to these ghost corpses that were neither human nor ghost corpses. In front of Bai Yanran, he no longer hid the secret of the Undying Sword Soul. He raised the black gold divine sword in his hand again and slashed out a terrifying sword light of death. On the spot, it pierced another ghost corpse and turned it into a corpse. Bai Yanran could not help but open his mouth into a circle. How many secrets is this guy hiding? Chapter 23-24. Strange Black Cauldron Boom. The last sword light exploded in the ghost city. Then, the ghost corpses fell to the ground one by one. Yifei had destroyed all 9 ghostly corpses. This deeply shocked by Yinran. Then, she couldn't help but notice the black gold divine sword in Yifei's hand. Yifei, what sword is that? Could it be that you used this sword to extinguish the earth fire? Bai Yinran was undoubtedly a smart woman. She had used her inextinguishable sword soul to seize the ghostly corpse's origin and determine the true reason for the earth fire's extinguishment. However, after going through hardships together in the earth's core, Yifei felt that Bai Yinran was a girl worthy of his trust. That was why he didn't hide it and flashed the inextinguishable sword token in front of Bai Yinran. That's right. I used this sword to suppress the earth fire. However, I hope that you can help me keep this a secret. Don't even tell Lord Pan's palace, Yifei said seriously. He could trust Bai Yinran, but he couldn't trust the entire Lord Pan's palace. Yes. I swear that I won't tell anyone except myself, Bai Yinran swore solemnly. Of course, she knew how valuable the black gold divine sword in Yifei's hand was. It might even be a weapon of Renzu. You don't have to swear. I believe you. Yifei nodded and put the indestructible sword token back into the Sky Palace. At this moment, the entire ghost city trembled slightly, and the void rumbled with a dull sound. Du Chong and the others were attacking Ghost City with all their might. Although Bai Yinran had used the advantage of the spirit augmentation technique to enter Ghost City first, Yifei knew that no matter how strong the Ghost City's divine glyphs were, it wouldn't be able to withstand dozens or even hundreds of Lord of Heaven's combined attacks. It wouldn't be long before Du Chong and the others swarmed into Ghost City. What he needed to do now was to obtain the inheritance of the heavenly ghoul tribe before they arrived. Yifei, you can go up. I'll stand guard here for you. Bai Yinran knew her limits. All the ghost corpses were killed by Yifei, and she did not help much. It was reasonable for Yifei to monopolize the inheritance of the heavenly ghoul clan. Let's go together. Yifei nodded and then shook his head. If there really is some powerful sacred art, we can study it together. Bai Yinran blinked, and a smile appeared on her face. If you really want to go with me, then I won't stand on ceremony. With that, she followed him valiantly. Since they were friends, there was no need to refuse. The two of them walked towards the giant ghost statue. Roar! Just as Yifei was about to pass by the 9 blood coffins, a black tortoise suddenly popped its head out and waved its claws at Yifei. These 9 coffins were obviously good stuff. Yifei's eyes lit up, and he praised the dragon tortoise. Big Black, you have sharp eyes. I almost didn't realize that these blood coffins were made with a portion of divine gold. This is a good material to upgrade a heavy sword. One must know that divine gold was a 6th-level divine material. It was even more precious than a 5th-level black iron heavy sword. As long as it was refined and integrated into a heavy sword, the power of the black iron heavy sword would definitely become stronger. Yifei didn't stand on ceremony. He directly tore apart the blood coffins and put them into his space belt. Originally, Yifei wanted to share some with Bai Yinran. But looking at the sinister blood coffins, Bai Yinran immediately rejected him. She couldn't understand why Yifei didn't feel unlucky. Then, something that made Bai Yinran even more dumbfounded happened. When the dragon tortoise realized that Yifei had left after putting away the blood coffins, it immediately grabbed Yifei's pants and pointed at the steps below their feet. Then, under Bai Yinran's incredulous gaze, the dragon tortoise bit a huge hole in the steps. It even looked happy and delicious. This black tortoise is a disgrace to the land. Yifei had already realized that these steps were made of black stone. It was just that with Bai Yinran in front of him, he naturally couldn't squat down and tear down the steps. On the other hand, the dragon tortoise shamelessly gnawed at the steps. Not only Yifei, but even Xiao Chao covered his face and pretended not to recognize the dragon tortoise. Bai Yinran was even more dumbfounded. It was hard for him to associate the dragon tortoise at this moment with the pure and innocent tortoise. Yifei pretended not to see it and quickly walked down the steps. At the end of the steps, there was a giant ghost statue. The giant ghost hand was dragging an ancient scroll. After asking Xiao Qiao to confirm that there were no hidden restrictions around, Yi Fei and Bai Yanran walked towards the giant ghost hand together. Boom! The scroll in the ghost hand suddenly trembled. At the same time, two cold divine lights shot out. One was the legacy scroll, and the other was a strange black cauldron that was caved in at the center of the ghost hand. This black cauldron had 3 legs and 4 ears. On the cauldron, there was an image of a ghost gate open and 100 ghosts walking at night. Yi? Seeing the black cauldron, Xiao Qiao exclaimed in surprise, as if she had discovered something. Yi Fei's heart skipped a beat. Xiao Qiao, is this cauldron treasure? Yi. Xiao Qiao nodded affirmatively. She didn't react when she looked at the scroll, but when she saw the black cauldron, Xiao Qiao's divine eye of the universe was blocked by the cauldron. Xiao Qiao quickly gestured and told Yi Fei this discovery. Yi Fei's eyes brightened. The legacy of the heavenly ghoul tribe was precious, but this seemingly incomplete black cauldron seemed to be even more precious than the legacy. Yi Fei immediately had an idea. He grabbed the black cauldron and said, "This black cauldron belongs to me. That scroll belongs to me." "What? Belongs to me?" Bai Yanran looked at Yi Fei in shock. Yi Fei explained, "I won't hide it from you. This black cauldron seems to be even more precious than the scroll. This is also the reason why I gave the scroll to you." Bai Yanran was relieved. She put away the scroll and said, "I don't want the black cauldron. I'll return this scroll to you after I've comprehended it." Obviously, Bai Yanran had no intention of monopolizing the treasure. This kind of consideration was rare. Yi Fei couldn't help but admire her. Boom! As the scroll separated from the black cauldron that Yi Fei was holding suddenly swayed. A ghostly door opened on the broken cauldron. Countless malicious ghosts seemed to want to rush out from the door. At the same time, a shocking suction force came from the black cauldron. Like a giant whale swallowing water, it started to absorb the power of the ghost city. The entire ghost city shook violently in an instant. The giant ghost statue faintly let out an ancient sigh. With a boom, the giant ghost statue split into 5 types. Only the giant ghost statue had 2 lines of stone tears rolling down its cheeks. Yi Fei also felt a clear sadness in his heart. He seemed to be sad about the decline of the heavenly ghoul tribe. Suddenly, Yi Fei had a terrifying thought. Could it be that the disappearance of the heavenly ghoul tribe is related to this black cauldron? The so-called forbidden land of the heavenly ghouls doesn't actually imprison the living, but this black cauldron? Chapter 23-25. Du Chang's murderous intent. What made Yi Fei helpless was that ever since he grabbed the black cauldron seemed to have attached itself to Yi Fei. To be more precise, it was staring at Yi Fei. However, the black cauldron did not attack Yi Fei. Instead, it madly absorbed all the energy in Ghost City. As the black cauldron absorbed the energy, the entire void of Ghost City became extremely unstable. Yi Fei tried to throw the black cauldron away several times, but the black cauldron stuck firmly to Yi Fei and sped up the rate at which it absorbed the energy of Ghost City. As a large amount of energy entered the black cauldron, a name appeared clearly in Yi Fei's mind. Ghost Emperor Cauldron. This is the name of the black cauldron? Ghost Emperor? Could this cauldron be the treasure of the Ghost Emperor, the ancient emperor who created the geocentric realm? Yi Fei was shocked. After all, the one who created the geocentric realm was the former Ghost Emperor. The black cauldron was also called the Ghost Emperor Cauldron. To make matters worse, as the Ghost Emperor Cauldron continued to absorb the energy of Ghost City, the black cauldron became heavier and heavier. At the same time, the void of Ghost City became more and more unstable. Outside Ghost City, Du Chong and the others could clearly sense the changes in Ghost City. They were all enraged. It's him. It must be that trash who has started to accept the Heaven Ghoul tribe's inheritance. Attack and kill him. Boom. Du Chong, Mo Lai, and even Feng Jie, who had just arrived, attacked furiously. They had come to fight for the inheritance. If it had fallen into the hands of each other, they could still accept it. However, now that it had fallen into the hands of nobody, they couldn't tolerate it. This was especially true for Feng Jie. He wasn't from the city of divine kings, but another overlord city in the divine prefecture. This time, he had come specifically to search for the Heaven Ghoul tribe's treasure. How could he just hand it over to someone else? Therefore, when he found out that Yi Fei had rushed into Ghost City first, Feng Jie accepted Du Chong and Mo Lai's invitation without hesitation. The three forces formed the Yi Extermination Alliance together. At this moment, the three of them gathered all their strength and attacked the gates of Ghost City in a frenzy. Perhaps their frenzy had an effect, or perhaps the changes in Ghost City had weakened the divine inscriptions on the gates. Finally, the gates of Ghost City opened with a loud rumble. Kill! Du Chong's killing intent surged like a sea. He couldn't forget the humiliation of being defeated by Yi Fei. This humiliation caused Du Chong to thoroughly want to kill Yi Fei. I, the Demon Man, am the master of the core world. The inheritance of the Heaven Ghoul race will be mine. Mo Lai's demonic aura surged as his pitch-black eyes flashed with strong conviction. I'll let you guys be the first ones to stick your heads out. When you guys are fighting to the death with that demon Yi, it'll be the time for me, Feng Jie, to make my move. Feng Jie's face was feminine, and his eyes were shining with astonishing ambition. He was determined to obtain the inheritance of the Heavenly Ghoul tribe. Although the other Lord of Heaven who followed and knew that they would not be able to obtain the inheritance, they also had the mentality of entering the Ghost City to take advantage of the situation. They all rushed towards the gradually collapsing giant ghost statue. Du Chong, who was the fastest, could clearly see that Bai Yanran was holding a scroll that was emitting a dim light. Then, he saw Yi Fei, who was desperately trying to suppress the Black Cauldron. Haha, Yi Fei, to think that you would have such a day. So what if you came in early? You're still my stepping stone. Today, I'm going to step over your corpse and obtain the inheritance of the Heaven Ghoul tribe. Boom! Du Chong immediately ignited his bloodline and transformed into his Wolf King form. He wanted to kill Yi Fei, but even though he was fast, Mo Lai was even faster. He actually made the first move and unleashed his martial path remarkable ability. Brother Du, get out of the way. Since you've already been defeated by Yi Fei, let me go up and take revenge for you. Brother Du, Brother Mo, stop fighting. Didn't we agree to kill Yi Fei first before discussing who the inheritance belongs to? How about this? Let's deal with Yi Fei together first. Feng Jie seemed to be trying to persuade them, but his eyes inadvertently glanced at Bai Yanran. Clearly, Feng Jie had already noticed that the scroll in Bai Yanran's hand was very likely the inheritance of the Heaven Ghoul tribe. However, the Black Cauldron in Yi Fei's hand had an equally shocking aura. At a glance, one could tell that it was an extraordinary treasure. This made it difficult for Feng Jie to choose. Du Chong and Mo Lai had no such qualms. While Yi Fei was still using all his strength to suppress the Black Cauldron, they exchanged glances and set aside their prejudices to attack Yi Fei together. Of course, before they attacked, they didn't forget to instruct their subordinates to cooperate with Feng Jie to capture Bai Yanran. This scene caused Bai Yanran's expression to change. He hurriedly looked at Yi Fei. What should we do now? You go first. I'll think of something. Yi Fei's expression was grave. The Black Cauldron was firmly sucking him in, preventing him from moving freely. At present, he could only let Bai Yanran go first so that he could give it his all. Hearing this, Bai Yanran stubbornly shook his head. I'm not going. We're friends, so I can't abandon you and run away alone. Hurry up and suppress the Black Cauldron. I'll help you block them. With a shout, Bai Yanran suddenly displayed the magical power of coiling the king on the ground and rotating thousands of peaks. In front of her, countless peaks rotated, and a great river of chi flowed through these peaks, forming an iron barrel-like defense of mountains and rivers. Seeing this, Feng Jie looked up to the sky and sighed. "You're a beauty, but why have you turned to the devil? Bai Yanran, do you think you can stop so many of us by yourself? Today, Yi Fei must die. No one can stop him." At Feng Jie's command, groups of Lord of Heaven swarmed out from behind him. They shattered the mountain peaks and shattered the mountains and rivers. It also caused Bai Yanran's face to turn pale. Her body swayed. No matter how strong she was only one person. What she was facing was hundreds of Lord of Heaven. "Bai Yanran, if you don't hand over the inheritance now, how long are you going to wait?" Feng Jie strode forward like a prince strolling through a battlefield. He was filled with a strong sense of authority and oppression. He wanted to completely crush this girl from the bottom of her heart. Du Chong and Mo Lai did not even look at Bai Yanran. Their faces were cold as they stepped onto the high platform and charged towards Yi Fei. On the high platform, the dragon turtle had become as huge as a mountain. Rolling demonic flames shot down. Knowing that Yi Fei was in the most dangerous period, the dragon turtle's expression became serious. Boom! The surging demonic fire soon covered the entire sky. In the sky, a pair of wolf-shaped fists smashed out ruthlessly. As they shattered the demonic fire, they also smashed the dragon tortoise backwards. Even so, the dragon tortoise did not choose to retreat. Instead, it burned with bloody flames and spewed poisonous wind. Several Lord of Heaven were caught off guard. They were poisoned until their bodies turned green and they collapsed on the spot. Du Chang's expression was extremely ugly. It would be the biggest joke if the number one Lord of Heaven could not even kill a sovereign black turtle. Kill. Chapter 23-26. Reverse scale the dragon turtle roared, and the mysterious black tortoise dragon shell appeared on its shell. It was like a demonic dragon mountain that firmly blocked Yi Fei's path. This scene infuriated Du Chong and Mo Lai. Kill. Accompanied by Du Chong's cold shout, the gigantic flaming saber sliced through the void and slashed towards the dragon tortoise. The dragon tortoise was so frightened that its black mouth turned pale. However, when it saw Yi Fei, who was still stuck in the black cauldron, the dragon tortoise roared again. Its neck and limbs retracted into its turtle shell. Then, the turtle shell started to spin wildly on the spot. Boom! Du Chang's flaming saber slashed down, but it was unable to break through the black tortoise dragon shell. Du Chang's expression became uglier than a pig's liver. It was one thing for the number one person of the Lord of Heaven to be unable to defeat Yi Fei, but now he couldn't even kill a sovereign black tortoise. Disgrace. Mo Lai laughed disdainfully. Du Chong, the number one person of the Lord of Heaven, you're really regressing. Since you're not a match for him, then leave. Let me do it. Kill. After the flames, boundless demonic flames burned the void and swept across the land. Mo Lai's demonic flames surged, turning the place into a terrifying hell. There was even a terrifying demonic god wielding a demonic saber that wanted to mercilessly devour the dragon turtle. Du Chong roared. The demonic saber had just appeared when the divine saber appeared. Provoked by Mo Lai, Du Chong was like an enraged godly king. He waved the flames of chaos, and the roaring flames covered the sky as they slashed at the dragon turtle. Roar! The dragon turtle's pained cries came from within the flames. No matter how strong the black tortoise dragon shell's defense was, it couldn't withstand Du Chong and Mo Lai's simultaneous attacks. Even the shell showed signs of cracking. Yi Fei's heart trembled when he saw this. He roared, "Big Black, come back!" Roar! The dragon turtle's response was a tyrannical roar. It didn't return, but continued to charge forward, blocking Yi Fei like a mountain. This scene shocked both Du Chong and Mo Lai. What did this black tortoise eat to grow up? Why is it so resilient? Humph. No matter how resilient it is, it's just a sovereign demon. Let's kill it with one final blow. Suddenly, Fiend Dao Lord charged over from afar and proposed a vicious plan. The three of them would join forces to kill the dragon turtle first. As he spoke, Demon Tao Lord took the initiative to attack first, blasting out his own divine ability. Du Cheng and Mo Lai both grinned maliciously and attacked again, scaring the dragon turtle into trembling. However, seeing that Yi Fei was still unable to break free from the black cauldron, the dragon turtle continued to stand motionless like a mountain, like an iron shield, blocking in front of it. Big Black, stop! Yi Fei's heart trembled. Of course, he knew what the outcome would be if the dragon turtle resisted. Even though the dragon turtle often attacked, he did not wish for the dragon turtle to die just like that. Little tortoise, let me help you. Bai Yanran couldn't care less about stopping the other Lord of Heaven. When she saw the dragon turtle in danger, she immediately rushed over. At the same time, she unleashed a terrifying divine flame to block the dragon turtle. 8th grade bloodline, divine rune storm. Bai Yanran's innate mystique was a divine rune, and an innate divine rune at that. She lifted the divine rune with great difficulty, as if she had exhausted all her strength, and pushed it forward. Suddenly, a violent divine rune storm appeared in the void, blowing away the surrounding Lord of Heaven. Unfortunately, the divine rune storm could only push people away, but it didn't have much offensive power. Led by Demon Tao Lord, Du Cheng, and Mo Lai were all powerful geniuses who could unleash the attack of a Tao Lord. At this time, the three of them joined forces and completely shattered the divine rune storm. At the same time, Demon Tao Lord relied on his advantage and cultivation level to throw out a pair of demonic fists. With one punch, he broke Bai Yanran's spiritual soft armor. With another punch, he broke the dragon turtle's sturdy shell. Bai Yanran and the dragon turtle vomited blood at the same time, and they flew in front of Yi Fei. I'm sorry. I can't help you, and I even hurt you. Bai Yanran vomited blood, and her eyes flashed with unwillingness and regret. She didn't notice that the blood she vomited fell to the ground and was slowly absorbed by the black cauldron, and its weight became lighter. Yi Fei, who was using all his strength to suppress the black cauldron, immediately noticed this change. Roar! At this time, the dragon turtle didn't care about the bloody hole in its shell. It stood up shakily and resolutely. As it stood in front of them again, the dragon turtle suddenly waved its dragon claws, wanting to send Bai Yanran and Yi Fei flying at the same time. Big Black, that's enough. Your performance is good enough. It's enough to make Xiao Qiao and me proud. Yi Fei obviously knew that the dragon turtle wanted to sacrifice itself to buy time for him and Bai Yanran to escape. However, if the dragon turtle died, how would he explain it to Xiao Qiao? Therefore, when he realized that his blood seemed to be able to suppress the black cauldron, Yi Fei suddenly slashed his arm with his sword without thinking. The flowing blood immediately made the 100 Ghosts image on the black cauldron go crazy. The image on the black cauldron seemed to come alive, and it greedily and crazily absorbed Yi Fei's blood. At the same time, the black cauldron's weight became lighter and lighter. Finally, when the black cauldron's weight reached a critical point, it could be lifted. Yi Fei roared angrily. He lifted the black cauldron with both hands. Bai Yanran, help me take care of the dragon turtle. Squeak, squeak. In the beast-marked space, Xiao Qiao's eyes were already brimming with tears. If not for Yi Fei stopping her, she would have rushed out. When they saw Yi Fei appear, Du Cheng, Mo Lai, Demon Tao Lord, Feng Jie, and a large group of Lord of Heaven rushed over with greedy expressions. Yi Mo, hand over the heavenly ghost inheritance, and we'll leave your corpse intact. Otherwise, we'll make Bai Yanran and that black cauldron accompany you in death. Boom! These Lord of Heaven's collective murderous intent caused the entire Ghost City to be filled with the aura of death and desolation. Feeling this aura, Yi Fei's expression changed. It wasn't fear, but a fiend godlike rage and a terrifying murderous intent that surged like the sea. A layer of terrifying blood battle will burn from Yi Fei's body. In the sky above Ghost City, Yi Fei's thunderous voice resounded. I hate it when people threaten me. I hate it even more when people use my family and friends to threaten me. A dragon's reverse scale will infuriate those who touch it. A dragon's reverse scale will kill those who touch it. Dong! Yi Fei lifted the cauldron and took a step forward. This step caused the heavens and earth to tremble and the ghost city to tremble. This was because as he moved forward, the pitch-black Ghost Emperor cauldron in his hand had already turned into a terrifying Ghost Emperor light and smashed forward. EMO, don't talk big. The heavenly ghost inheritance can only flourish in the hands of major forces like us. A small fry like you isn't even worthy of competing with us. Du Chong, Mo Lai, and Feng Jie were enraged at the same time. Demon Dao Lord, who had a grudge against Yi Fei, had a ferocious glint in his eyes. Yi Fei's gaze was also cold as he glared at Demon Dao Lord. You were the one who injured my black cauldron. Then you can go to hell. Chapter 23-27. Cauldron kill the demonic Dao Lord roared in fury. A pair of iron-like fists suddenly appeared between heaven and earth, shattering the void and causing the entire ghost city to tremble slightly. This was the might of a Dao Lord. Sensing this might, many Lord of Heaven couldn't help but feel fear in their hearts. However, in the face of this pair of fists, Yi Fei's eyes suddenly erupted with killing intent like a hurricane. As if sensing Yi Fei's intentions, the Ghost Emperor cauldron suddenly trembled violently. The simple cauldron suddenly erupted with a terrifying dark light. It was the light of the ghost god, capable of devouring heaven and earth. The dark light condensed into a black cauldron identical to the Ghost Emperor cauldron, suppressing Ghost City and shattering heaven and earth. At the same time, the demonic Dao Lord's terrifying fist shattered. This is impossible. Young Lord, let's kill him together. The demonic Dao Lord revealed a terrified expression. The might of the black cauldron exceeded his expectations. Yi Fei also revealed a shocked expression. He had only wanted to use the weight of the black cauldron to suppress the demonic Dao Lord, but the black cauldron had actually erupted with a dark light that directly shattered the Dao Lord's divine ability. Yi Fei's confidence in breaking through the encirclement was greatly boosted. Even his bloody battle intent became as bright as the stars. In the face of this brilliance, Du Chong, Mo Lai, and Feng Jie were both shocked and enraged. A faint trace of greed appeared in their eyes as they looked at the black cauldron. Dai Yimo. Du Chong was the first to attack. The phantom of the wolf god appeared behind him. Beneath his feet was a blazing sea of fire. At this moment, Du Chong stood above the sea of fire like an enraged divine king, raising his blade to flatten the world. You don't know what's good for you. Even death can't wipe out your crimes. Mo Lai's expression was ferocious. Ignoring the fact that Yi Fei had obtained the inheritance, just the fact that Yi Fei had killed so many demons was enough for him to kill this person. Then, demonic flames howled, forming a pitch-black pillar of fire. Within the pillar of fire, Mo Lai's entire body turned into iron, turning into an iron puppet. His fists and feet resounded, destroying heaven and earth. In the end, Feng Jie didn't make a move. Instead, he smiled viciously and looked on coldly. It was obvious that he wanted to watch from the sidelines. Most of the other lords of heaven did the same. However, Li Chong and the two remaining lords of heaven from the palace of the king of gods both smiled viciously and attacked together. Yi Fei, be careful. Bai Yanran had used all her strength to activate her natural mystique. At this moment, she could only watch helplessly as Yi Fei was besieged. As for the dragon turtle, it did not care that its shell was shattered and it was covered in blood. It stood up shakily and tried to catch up to Yi Fei. Bai Yanran quickly grabbed the dragon turtle's tail, but was still dragged a distance away. The ground was stained red by the dragon turtle's blood. In the sky, the three lords of heaven, Du Chong, Mo Lai, Demon Lord, and Li Chong, were roaring ferociously and seething with murderous intent. In the face of such murderous intent, Yi Fei was not flustered. He had discovered the power of the Ghost Emperor Cauldron. This time, he made up his mind and suddenly ignited his own bloodline. However, this bloodline did not appear on his body. Instead, it ignited the Ghost Emperor Cauldron like a raging fire. Boom! After absorbing enough of Yi Fei's blood and being greatly stimulated by the 9th rank bloodline, the Ghost Emperor Cauldron suddenly became as big as a mountain. In the blink of an eye, Yi Fei had grown from the size of a table to the size of a mountain. It was like an ant lifting a mountain of ghosts and gods. With a loud boom, Du Chong's divine blade, Mo Lai's fire pillar, and Demon Lord's demonic fists were all suppressed by the Black Cauldron. The sky was filled with the light of the Abhijna. All the lords of heaven were shocked. The terrifying power of the Black Cauldron was beyond their imagination. Li Chong was so frightened that his legs trembled. Yellow urine dripped down from his trousers into the sky. Some even fell into the mouth of the Lord of Heaven, who was gaping in shock. However, no one laughed at him or scolded him. This was because at this moment, the Black Cauldron had already whizzed past Li Chong's head. No, Li Chong was so frightened that he almost fainted. This was the first time he felt that death was so close to him. Soon, he saw the 2 lords of heaven of the Divine King Palace beside him explode into a bloody mist just by being brushed by the Black Cauldron's legs. Only Li Chong was lucky. Coincidentally, the 3rd leg of the cauldron was broken. This allowed him to survive. However, Li Chong was not happy at all. After all, Yi Fei, who was carrying the giant cauldron, was below the cauldron's legs. Yi Fei also saw Li Chong. However, he did not attack. It was not that he could not, but that he did not care. At this moment, his target was not Li Chong, but the demon lord who had severely injured by Yan Ran and the dragon turtle. He actually ignored me. He ignored me, the eldest son of the Li family. Li Chong was angry, afraid, and regretful. The feeling of being treated like air was worse than death. However, the demon lord, who was the focus of Yi Fei's attention, let out an incomparably terrified roar. He burned his demonic flames, his bloodline, and his essence. He even used all the strength in his body to block the terrifying Black Cauldron's attack. Unfortunately, the Black Cauldron's power was too terrifying. Just by coming into contact with the Demon Lord's body, the Black Cauldron exploded with a terrifying dim light. It shattered the Demon Lord's mystique and also shattered his body. In the end, only the demonic Tao Lord's horrified soul managed to escape from his shattered body. He wanted to escape from this terrifying ghost city, but just as the demonic Tao Lord's soul escaped, the 100 ghost pattern engraved on the Black Cauldron seemed to come alive. Woo woo woo. 100 ghosts wailed, and 10,000 ghosts cried out for injustice. The dim light in the Black Cauldron suddenly condensed and formed a huge ghost gate. With a boom, the ghost gate opened and the light of the ghost god burst out. The demon lord's escaping soul was suddenly enveloped by the divine light. His soul was dragged into the ghost gate and completely dissipated. The powerful demon lord died just like that. Even his soul could not escape. Hiss! The Lord of Heaven present gasped. Many of them looked at Yi Fei with disdain and indifference. Now, they looked at him with deep fear. Seeing the demon lord killed by the cauldron with his own eyes, Li Chong was almost scared to death. He wished that Yi Fei would treat him like air. Everyone, don't be afraid. He's only one person, but there are more than 100 of us. His blood is limited, and he can't use the Black Cauldron for a long time. Let's attack together and eliminate this demon. Feng Jie was originally going to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. However, Yi Fei's performance was no longer that of a ferocious tiger, but a divine dragon that soared to the 9 heavens. Feng Jie finally couldn't hold himself back and decided to make a move. His instigation also calmed the other heavenly lords down from their fear. No matter how strong this EMO is, he's only one person. There are so many of us. Why should we be afraid of him? Kill him and snatch that Black Cauldron. At this moment, everyone could see that the Black Cauldron was definitely the most precious treasure in the Ghost City. It was even more precious than the ghost city's inheritance. How could they be willing to give it up? Their greed finally made the Lord of Heaven present cry out. Hundreds of Lord of Heaven released their mystiques together and attacked Yi Fei. Only Li Chong, who was scared out of his wits, held back the wetness of his pants and scrambled out of Ghost City. He had already completely lost the confidence to oppose Yi Fei. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.